faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock tick 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 tick. The clock tick 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 faster. Living off borrowed time. The clock 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 tick faster.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Living Off Borrowed Time podcast. I am your host, Patrique, Patrique on RYM, joined as always by Caleb, OptimalAudio on RYM, joined this week by resident Mach-Hommy expert, King Aaron Z, who has an artist name on Bandcamp that I think is probably something related to being a king and being named Aaron that I'm not actually knowing the name of right now, but Wyatt will definitely be kind enough to throw into the comments. And he had some fucking problems with the way we talked about Mach-Hommy on our last episode. So I guess we're going to address those, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea, I think. Yeah.
But I also wanted to clear up that we actually really fucking like Mach-Hommy, and this episode's about Mach-Hommy, and in doing the homework for this podcast, he's an incredible rapper who I think that people have not heard nearly enough of, and maybe based on some things that I said in the previous episode, maybe focus a little too much on his marketing tactics as opposed to the content of his music, and the content of his music is definitely worth analysis, and his career approach actually, even maybe those marketing tactics have more to them than just the surface level, this dude's trying to bilk white people aspect to it. I don't know. But there's a lot.
I do want to, first and foremost, like, I think it is interesting in music how we say, and it's not just music, it's a lot of art, but we say, oh, X person, there's more to them than this. And I feel like when it comes to Mach-Hommy and marketing tactics, for the most part, I don't think there's more to it than what it is. And I'm not picking. He's got great music. We'll get into it, of course. But I do think when it comes to, like, for the most part, his marketing stuff, it's like, no, I just think it's pretty cut and dry. I think the music, there's more to him, than what people would hear. And he just kind of sounds like Ghostface, or he kind of sounds like Jay-Z. No, like, I don't think that's true. But I think when it comes to the marketing, I do push back a little on that, because I just kind of think that's Mach-Hommy. That's the brand he's built for himself.
Well, I think it's just like the way that music is, consumed these days. People don't really buy music. So when you're coming to the table with something that's such quality, and that it's that quality, and people are just going to bootleg it anyway, then putting that price up, to me, honestly, I respect that, because people are going to listen to it anyway, and they're going to know it's dope. But the people that they're paying money for it, then, they got much more respect, I think, than the people, the average person that's just bootlegging it. Even though, like you were saying, you still got the respect for them projects. So the double-edged sword.
But I think it also conveys, and this is totally me projecting right now, so I don't want to speak for the artist or any of his fans, but I think it also conveys, to me anyway, like this weird sense of, like, superiority, like, oh, I can charge this amount for my, like, work. And knowing your self-worth is great, and like I said, I'm speaking for him right now. If this is totally off base, I believe it, because this is just, like, me projecting. But I do think that it kind of reflects this weird, like, oh, all you peons charge, you stream the music, or you charge $9.99 on Bandcamp or whatever for your albums. Like, I can do this. So I don't know.
Him putting the high price on it has definitely been, it's been people have definitely carteled onto that, trying to use it for their own shit, like Al Divino, other people like that. Definitely.
Al Divino. Also, Al Divino. I just want to stop the podcast real quick. Grind it to a halt. Al Divino. You get this much money, one person buys your shit, you can afford to master your shit just a little bit. Just a fucking little bit, dude. Like, I like Al Divino a lot, but some of the shit he puts out and charges that price for, come on, Al.
123.45.
Also, I just want to point
5 minutes of massive music.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but Nipsey predates Mach doing this. He charged $100 for Crenshaw before Mach did any of this shit.
This is very true. Crenshaw, 2013, I believe. Is that right?
Something around that time. Yeah, he completely outside the industry, just pretty much out of trunk. Oh, not really literally out of a trunk, possibly out of a trunk. But he also did it to fund his artist space in Compton. So Nipsey very much talked about the sort of economic things that I think Mach is also trying to start a conversation about this sort of thing. Yes, Mach's trying to make money. I think Mach's also trying to start a conversation. That's why you see Mach in pictures with Jay, and we'll get to this at the very end. Apparently, people think that Jay is rapping like Mach on the newest Jay-Z featuring Jay Electronic album.
Yeah. A lot of different comparisons there, definitely, yeah.
So I think there's been a lot of influence going both ways. I don't necessarily see it in the rapping, by the way, but we'll talk about that when we talk about that.
I just want to say one more thing about the price. With art, Basquiat, people used to put the price. They used to put the price on his work. He just used to make it, and then they would say, "Oh, I'll pay this much for it." So Mac putting his price on his own shit. I've got to respect that.
I see what you're saying, but my counter argument to that is the price overshadowing the content. I'm thinking about Banksy, who I don't think much of his art, but I think that the way he chooses to market his art and the presentation of his art as opposed to the art itself is the actual quote-unquote art in that way. And I think that's very much like a hollow approach where it's he's putting a mirror to society. It's novel. It works for a second. Then ultimately it's just very hollow. It's oh, okay, we see what you're doing, dude. And I think that gives people a false impression. I feel like that gives people a false impression of Mach, that he's just doing the price gimmick, and then they don't look at his music very closely beyond that. And I think Mach is trying to start that conversation. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No. You're making a good point.
So, but let's start when Jay-Z wasn't trying to sound like Mach. Mach was trying to sound like Jay-Z. We talked about this on our Baby Pictures episode. Maybe you have a little more light to shed on it. Goon Grizzle. I think you took issue with how we did not like one of the hooks on this.
Well, that HOOD. Y'all don't know me or something. That's hard, man. That's hard. I don't know how you guys didn't mind that.
Because it sucked. Because it was just... Because it was trash. I don't know. Because it was it just sounded like an atonal version of... It was the sort of thing that, Dipset could do, that Jay would try and do. It sounded like a rejected Jay-Z idea. Then Jay started using rejected Jay-Z ideas around this time period, a little 2 years later, Kingdom Come era. And it sounded like Mach was doing stale Jay-Z shit with that hook. Not with his rapping.
You mentioned Kanye on the hook. So, if Jesus walk and Kanye no, then why the fuck I'm selling Bombay though?
I never even made that connection. Okay. Point to you on that.
That tape was originally from 2004, I believe.
He was smarter even then. He was smarter than a lot of his contemporaries even then. Yeah, so...
Obviously, it's his first tape.
Even then, he's taking other people's Even then, he's taking other people's approaches, though.
Yeah, very true. But like I say, it's his early tape. It's his first tape. It's early. I think probably a lot of the beats probably are other people's beats. Probably not original. So he's probably just throwing ideas out there. Not really putting something together as a major project. But the first one. I know F.Y.I didn't come out for another at least almost 10 years. So.
Yeah, so he and Benny were kind of floating around the same space, I guess. Sort of. And West and all of them. Well, I mean, not really the same space because Mach was New Jersey and he fell out for 10 years. Who's to say he was even rapping during this period? There's no real material from that time period, right?
Yeah, I think he was more around Georgia, Atlanta around them times with Rosewood, I think. So that's obviously originally where they hook up with Westside and Conway. So. Obviously, they're based in New York, so it's obviously a little bit different, but that's why you don't see them featuring on their tracks back then.
Well, Optimal, do you have anything to say about Goon Grizzle, or do we want to even touch on the Griselda stuff? Because I wanted to focus mainly on Mach solo, but the Griselda stuff is formative to that. We want to get into HBO. So,
I think the only thing I have to say is it reminds me of a Danny Brown interview I saw recently, where Danny Brown was like, "Yo, these motherfuckers from Buffalo are going crazy. Conway," and he's like, and it was an interview. It was some title interview, I think, and he was like, Conway got half his like face to the side and shit. And he's still spitting his ass off. And then West Side got his own thing. And then they got with this guy, Mach-Hommy. That's who you should be talking about. And I was just like, Danny was just going in about how much he loved Griselda. I just love, but when he talked about Conway, he was kind of talking like Conway talks, because half of Conway's face is
scrunching up his face and shit. Yeah, he was doing. I noticed that West Side does that a lot in his bars, in his videos. Like West Side actually screws up his face a lot. So one of my friends showed me that. It was like, well, don't they all try and rap like Conway? Now he's got his face shot. Benny does it as well, apparently.
It was a hilarious segment of an interview from Danny. But that's all I have I don't have much about the HBO. I mean, it's good. It's really good. But like we kind of touched on it in a previous episode, I believe, Pat.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think everything that we said there kind of stands, and the same.
I definitely mentioned the stuff about the Bible, a lot of references that I completely forgot about, but stuff that you can see a lot later on in his discography, similar references. Like you were saying, Pat, how he clearly shows he's smart back then, even though it's like at least almost 20 years ago now.
Right, like he definitely has the same preoccupations with like the Bible, and not just like in a lot of rappers have always had a Jesus complex, a Christ Savior complex sort of thing. But Mox always goes deeper. Like one of my favorite songs of his is actually, we'll get to it way later when we talk about his work with DJ Muggs, but he has like a real way with biblical references that runs deeper. And even the biblical references on here, it's not just the Jesus Walks Kanye one, which is one of the best moments on the tape, by the way. And even the fact that he sounds like Jay is not, like I pointed this out on the Baby Pictures episode, which is the one Optimal was referring to, is that he's not doing like what Kendrick does on the Comparison album I made. They both sound like Jay. One's doing it in like a way where he's trying as much as possible to sound like the person, whereas Mach uses it more as like a reference point. And you can still hear in his bars the same content. Like he's not as refined. He's not nearly as good of a writer, but he's still a decent writer. He's still way better than a lot of the mid guys who were just coming out with the same sort of New York sounding shit around that time period. So yeah.
Can clearly see his artistry and his vision, even from early on.
Like, yeah, even that early, there's still the formative aspects of the guy who would become Mach-Hommy. So I guess we can leap from there.
The last song, What's the Science? Like, there's a whole interlude on that where he talks about the history of Haiti. It's incredible.
Right. Yeah, that's the sort of content you weren't getting from anyone else. Like, that shows how he's forming his identity. And now, so we can leap from there to, I guess, F.Y.I. predates Griselda, correct?
Yeah, 2013 on Bandcamp.
So F.Y.I. I had not heard that in the lead up to this. I have heard it once. I don't believe I wrote a review for it. So can you just like real quick nutshell it, sort of thing?
Well, it's as hard to really describe any really Mach-Hommy release, but yeah, some of the tracks on there, Egypt, Breast Milk, Blue Movies. Wow.
I mean, that
sounds like a great song.
There's even a knowledge beat on there, I believe.
Diddy reference there to be made, but
sorry,
a Chappelle Diddy reference to be made there.
There's a knowledge beat on there for Gnarly Dude. That beat is produced by Knowledge. Someone who obviously Mac went to work on with a lot later as well, with the Spook, which will come on.
Yeah, so and his style on here is, I presume, sort of fully formed at this point, like in terms of what he's doing with his flow, in terms of how he's rapping. Because when he's with the Griselda, like again, his personality isn't as strong. Like that's the story of Mach, is that it's just like even on Goon Grizzle, like you see the elements starting to cohere, but it isn't until he breaks off with Griselda that he becomes like a fully formed personality. And even though I said on the previous episode he has no original ideas, it doesn't matter that they might not be original ideas. He synthesizes them in a way that expresses his personality in a profoundly original way.
Jesus, I couldn't have said it any better, man. Wow. Honestly. But he's in that project, he's still evolving into what he would become. But you can still, just like Goon Grizzle, you can still see everything shining through. But with F.Y.I, it's much more prevalent than it is on Goon Grizzle. Much more prevalent. But the science, the math, the intelligence, the references. It's all there. It's all there. It's just a different point in his career, literally. Like, it opens with a sample of Steve Jobs, believe it or not. That's what it opens with. So,
yeah, fuck Steve Jobs.
That's very Jay-Z of Mach.
But he does have another reference where he mentions Steve Jobs, something about an iPhone. Like,
would you say it's very Jay-Z, or
samples him on that one, and then I think on what is it, Dumpmeister? I think he says your iPhone 7 is a trap.
Yeah, your iPhone 7's a prison, or your iPhone 7's a prison, which is a great reference. I was thinking about because it's like you have to jailbreak your iPhone, so your iPhone 7's a prison. I love that.
Open your third eye, man. Your iPhone 7's a prison. That would be like an Ab-Soul
verse about how your iPhone 7's actually a vagina and you have to have sex.
Ab-Soul just downloading all the apps that we don't want to know about.
Ab-Soul probably buys Brain Force from the InfoWars Life store.
You think?
Oh, man, really? Come on, man. What? Really?
you think that you think that Ab-Soul is DMing like all those conservative like fitness like
I think
influencers?
Ab-Soul probably lost most of his money in Bitcoin scams.
Some guy was like, give me 10K and I'll give you half a Bitcoin. Which to this day we're all
essentially like the high-tech version of when Homer Simpson gave all those nerds left Homer's dorm in that one episode, and Snake came out and said he was the wallet inspector, and they all gave them their wallets. That's pretty much what happened to Ab-Soul. You don't get that reference because you're like 15 years old.
I've seen lots of Simpsons seasons. I don't think I remember that episode, but
that's a very famous episode. Conan O'Brien wrote it. So Ryan, if he ever actually listens to this part of the podcast, because Ryan doesn't actually listen to most of the podcast, he listens to random points in it and then makes references to like the 3 rap songs that he knows. And the one time we made him listen to Scorpion. So
right. It was a wild time. I will say that you mentioned Ab-Soul losing money in Bitcoin. Some Ab-Soul probably did lose like 10 grand to Bitcoin because nobody knows how Bitcoin fucking works. It is fake. It does not exist. Like,
I mean, money isn't really that real either.
No, it's Mach-Hommy would also say that. So that's.
Well, to bring it back around to Mac, with the F.Y.I, you're talking about conspiracies and shit like that. He mentions on one of the tracks on it, he says, COINTELPRO, they behind it, sending vaccines with AIDS to Haiti. The CDC them hate their babies. So,
well, on the other hand, we really
corporations devour children for profits.
We really fucked Haiti up so bad that's not just an average anti-vax bar or whatever. Like the way the USA fucked with Haiti, he has a lot of reason to be suspicious of anything the US does in Haiti ever. As
it's not
the US does anywhere ever.
It's not your average anti-vax bar in the same way Gibbs on Palmolive is not your average anti-vax. It's the same sort of concept where it's like you could see the basis for it. You don't love it. You're not really into it, at least for me. But I can see the basis for it because it is rooted in the fact that, like, there is logic somewhere in there. Like you can see the basis for it, even if you disagree with the overall take.
Shout out to our number 1 viewer who views our episodes before everybody, who loves this discussion. Just saying. Anyway.
As much as he loves a 2-hour Nas album.
Yeah, I think in 2020 that's not what the world needs.
Yeah,
not what the world needs in 2020.
No.
Yeah. But there's something to be said for context, and I feel in this case, obviously, there's a deeper context to it. The Gibbs thing. It's more complicated because it was very jarring to hear that at first, and I don't think it's different than something I've mentioned on the podcast before, Jizza's fucking dumb meme about we've had the flu vaccine for 60 years. But we still have the flu. Offsprings.
It's a lot of Funk Flex bombs on that one.
wasn't Royce the 5'9's one the most one that was had the most backlash, I suppose, from the allegory? Wasn't it the track with West Side Gun that he was saying some anti-vax bars? I don't recall.
I mean, that would require me to remember any of the allegory.
Yeah, it was a pretty forgettable album.
There were 3 tracks on there, but there was one, I believe it was the West Side track, where he essentially claims that vaccines gave his son autism. There you go.
God, I'd love hip hop.
No, unfortunately, that is not an uncommon belief outside of hip hop, because people are just fucking really smart and have big brains to solve problems.
I don't want to pigeonhole
logical solutions to things.
Yeah, I would never pigeonhole it to just this genre
That album is the worst album I've heard all year. Shout out to Royce the 5'9". You came up with a worse album than your buddy Marshall. Fuck you, Royce.
Worse than the Tory Lanez album you haven't listened to? Sight unseen.
No, that's probably the worst on moral levels. Also, Wale put out a protest album, and on the podcast we are. I bet he probably talked about his taters as being equal to the police in the second song. So
the woman that didn't want to have sex with him.
I wonder how when it came out, and maybe we should look for bars about you.
Damn. Shit, do I have to listen to that now?
Oh yeah, Aaron, you don't know. Famous rapper Wale really hates co-hosts of this show.
Yeah, just really got at me on Twitter. It says that said some things, took offense to me disliking.
Are you familiar with the song "Diced Pineapples"?
Yeah,
is that Rick Ross, right? Rick Ross.
Yeah.
Right.
Wale begins it with a poem where he seduces a woman, and our co-host here was not fond of that, and he said so on Twitter. And then Wale basically said he had to laugh because he thought that meant that our co-host was not thought sex was gross. Wherein he actually thought that Wale's interpretation of sex, listening to Wale read a poem in an attempt to have sex with somebody, was gross.
Which I don't know how, I still to this day, Wale, who prides himself on being such a thoughtful and brain genius individual, got that interpretation from what I said. I was very clear. I even had lyrics in there. So I guess reading comprehension is really in the fucking toilet these days.
Maybe Wale should go on Rap Genius and look up his own verse.
Wale probably uses A to Z lyrics instead or something. He uses an off-brand Rap Genius. They don't even have
It's a great moment to remember that I don't listen to either of these artists. So living my best life,
Well, you don't really have a reason to listen to Wale albums in 2020, really in any year. I know at one point in time people thought he was cool, but
Again,
you're taking a piss out of him by calling him Wale, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, he really doesn't like that. But this is really juvenile, and we should get back to the actual topic.
We should. A rapper much better than Wale.
Yeah,
who's never done anything juvenile, like quote Tigger in a song or anything, and say you would Tigger, badoink, badoink.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Words about F.Y.I. There's one song on there that you would probably recognize if you remember the Mos Def album. With the track California, the song Russian Doll was actually using the same beat, so that's interesting to notice.
That would start a trend in Mach-Hommy's career of occasionally, Chris Crack style, just kind of taking your beat and just being like, you aren't doing anything with that.
Would it definitely say that? But
are you going to use that beat? It's like that guy who just comes up to your table at the restaurant. You ain't going to eat that. You ain't going to use that beat. So
this album did originally come out for free on Bandcamp as a mixtape. But then I suppose he digitally remastered it, removing a few songs and replacing one, I believe, and then put it up for sale on his website. But obviously the specifics about which beat belongs to who is anyone's guess, I suppose, at this point. But I did also want to mention that about his references, the samples on there, Angela Davis, John Henrik Clarke, H-Rap Brown, Malcolm X, Steve Jobs, which I also mentioned, and Nas also being sampled on there as well. And of course, Tupac, who is sampled a lot on Mac's music, so just obviously wanted to round it out with a few more points about the album.
Right. I have not listened to this since I first heard it. I've only given it one listen. I will listen to it again because I'm sure it's very good because Mach has never put out a bad project. So
definitely deeper discography, definitely.
So yeah, we can move on now, I guess, to the Griselda period and Mach's musical evolution, which I suppose we touched on the 2 EPs on the previous episode. Do you have anything to say about them? Like, basically, you know his career trajectory better than we do. So what were the circumstances of him signing with Griselda, and what were the circumstances of him leaving? Because I basically know the EPs, and then Gun Day 3, you know, West Side basically kind of kicks him on his ass and says, give me a painting. So...
Yeah, I don't know specifics of every situation. I know there was a lot of beef between F.Y.I and something to do with not paying him for a verse or something like that, or not even wanting him to spit, just wanting him to produce for them, some shit like that.
So was it to do with signing F.Y.I? Did he want them to sign?
I'm honestly not sure.
Griselda, or
not sure, honestly. I know there's a Reddit thread out there that's got a lot of more information than I could personally reel off the top of my head, but.
What's interesting is that it seems like F.Y.I is the one of these dudes who's really online. None of these other guys are really online. Like, they have, like, Instagrams. You know, Mach doesn't even have a phone. He probably has a rotary phone.
Oh, no, he's got a phone. He's got a phone. He's definitely got a phone. I've seen it on Twitter, on the Tidal Takeover, and on Instagram Live. He's definitely got a smartphone.
Okay, he's going on Instagram Live with his sidekick.
Well, he was on Instagram Live with Douce Cognac, mixing up hard lemonade. So,
oh yeah, we need to go.
If you didn't catch that, that was
the hard lemonade recipe when we get to the album, because I've been curious as to what the actual recipe is. But so I figured.
Well, there's a few of the things I wanted to mention before we can get to the Griselda. There's definitely an era in his career between F.Y.I and the Griselda era, where he was working with people like Huss Kingpin and Smooth and Rosewood, the winners. Definitely a lot of dope collaborations. He's all over a lot of their projects. There's a few
I have never heard any of that. I saw that tag on his ROM, but I have not listened to any of it. I know Huss Kingpin, obviously, and I've heard Smooth on features. I have not, but I have not heard their collaborative stuff, I don't believe, so you can enlighten on that real quick.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of dope collab. Obviously, Rosewood was on the last track on Goon Grizzle, so they've been tight for a long time, since obviously Goon Grizzle days. But when they reconnected with Huss Kingpin, they made a lot more tracks. And then eventually that's when he got together with Griselda. And on Easter Gun Day 2, I believe it is, where West Side is dissing Huss Kingpin and Rosewood. And Max obviously just on the track, just not saying anything about it really, even though that's his homeboy. So I think they might have took a little bit of disrespect to that, I suppose. But they haven't worked again since.
So we have the EPs, which we've spoken about. He had one that I just want to comment on we had 2 EPs from, I guess, the F.Y.I era.
I believe there was 6 total. I believe 6. There's only 2 of them is on our
It says Good Grease and Goodbye Uncle Tom, which I guess those are just like they take tracks from F.Y.I. But Goodbye Uncle Tom is named after a really notorious exploitation film from the 70s, which should have been an early indication that this dude, his reference points are off this fucking chart. So
yeah, definitely. I remember that movie as well. I believe it was a reconstruction of slavery. I believe I remember that movie.
Yeah, it was not exactly accurate reconstruction of slavery.
Yeah. Hence the exploitation tag, obviously.
Yeah. So then we move on to HBO. HBO was the only proper Griselda project that Mach-Hommy put out as an album, and it's essentially it's an August like. Mach, over the course of his career, for the most part, would be most comfortable working with a single producer. Like, a lot of times it would be F.Y.I, and I think that's where they really gravitated towards each other. And then you would have the later projects with Knxwledge, with Earl, with Muggs, obviously, those 2 projects. Yep. And this one is not entirely August Fanon, but as you pointed out to me, like, even though he doesn't have his full personality, it's mostly an August Fanon project, and it's probably the first time anyone trusted August Fanon to do an album with them. Like, even Arm & Hammer worked with him extensively and never really turned an album over to him. And you wouldn't really see this until he worked with Iceberg Theory this year. Yeah. And it shows that Mach had a really trained ear for what producers were great, what were left field, and what he would feel comfortable over. Although I feel like August sound on this is not as fully defined as it would be later. It sounds a little like Big Ghost to me, like with Teacher All Day, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong, the initial track, with that like guitar lick on it, kind of sounds like something Big Ghost would do, where it's like kind of like a rock hip-hop crossover, which kind of makes sense that he would eventually work with Muggs, although the Muggs stuff would sound nothing like rock crossover or Cypress Hill.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, that track probably could fit on something from that era. Definitely, yeah, 100%.
But yeah, as in terms of his distinctive personality, I feel like he stands out here more than on the Griselda stuff. He's doing the flow switches more. He's doing the Creole a lot more. The references are more obscure. The flow, like the song structure, is less. It's more freeform. It's still not where he would be eventually. Not even on Dumpmeister, which has a different approach to it that we'll get to when we get to it. But this is great. It's a great album. And it's gotten lost classic status because you have Derringer on here when you don't have August Fanon. And it's kind of a weird... I used to think of it as the alternate universe. Mach is doing Griselda albums. It's kind of alternate universe where August Fanon is doing Griselda albums.
Yeah, that Gondek on Hitler 7, right? I believe. Crazy track.
So, yeah. And I don't know. I don't have much else to say about it. I didn't get to listen to it as homework for this.
Well, HBO obviously is, I think for me, is probably his strongest project, mostly because
of the
length.
His strongest. You think
mostly because of the length, but also because of how deep he's going on some of the tracks. But
I think the length is the biggest detriment to it, because I think that he got stronger once he decided to edit himself.
Wow. Okay, fair enough.
Because I think that, part of the appeal of his style is doing the Supreme Clientele, discursive, rambling sort of thing. But when he learned to get it down to a single producer and edit it like he did with Knxwledge, like he did with Earl, like he did with Muggs, that led to it just being a more potent sort of unified statement, as opposed to here where it's mostly unified but still feels a little scattershot just in terms of the length, although it's still mostly unified. Like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about this album. It's an outstanding album and everybody should hear it.
Well, as I say, to me, definitely one of his strongest projects. So the production is probably what tops it over for me. Just the Fanon is, I know you said it's not really as fleshed out as he was later on in his career, especially with the Arm & Hammer stuff, but to me, that, I think apparently from one of the T and Converse interviews with Mark himself, they mentioned that a lot of some of the tracks that Fanon used for Fat Matt were actually using the same exact drum pattern. So if you're going to go back and listen to a few of those, you'll notice that. But
right, that does track for sure. And yeah, Optimal clearly has not listened to this in a while because he has nothing to say.
No. Well, I'm letting you guys go. You guys are the Mach experts. This is a really good album, and I've heard it, and we talked about it, I think, on a previous episode, not just the EPs, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I haven't listened to it in a while. I remember really liking the back half, like that kind of bandana, thank God run. So yeah,
crazy,
great.
Some of the songs was 5 minutes long as well, so it probably seems like it might drag, but he bars it out on most of the songs all the way to the end as well. So absolutely insane. Bandana, half of the song is just chopped and screwed up. The first half of the first half of that song, where he spits the first verse on that song, is absolutely incredible.
One of the things that's really cool about Mach is he plays the structure. I say he does nothing new, but he really does kind of in the way he plays with structure. He doesn't care about how a rap song is supposed to sound. And I think that's been an influence on Earl, too. I don't think Earl really started doing the short songs or the little mini hook and then a 16 bar that isn't where you would expect bars to be sort of thing until he started listening. Because he's done work with Mach. Obviously, he did the one EP and he was on Mach was on 4N and Nothing But Net, which is on the next Mach album, I believe, Dump God Homie edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We can move to that, which has the cover that I believe you called me out on the comment box for. No, that was not the one. That was the Mobb Deep reference. But this is one of those where, okay, we need to talk about how if you listen to Mach-Hommy, you get a lot of Fahim. And so how much Fahim are you okay with? And is Fahim just a guy who rides off of Mach's coattails, or how much? And also, you have to recognize that Fahim provides a lot of the production on these albums, and he's great at that. So you have to give him a lot of rope because of that.
Plus the fact that Fahim is the younger. Mach took him underneath his wing, pretty much, when he brought him into the game.
You can see the evolution in F.Y.I as a rapper, I think, too, like, over time.
Well, there's some people that say that the TGIF era, he was the best, and that these days he's not really coming on the same way. But for me, these days he actually raps on beat, and back then he wasn't even rapping on beat most of the time back then. But he still switches it up a lot, which to me is probably what I like him the most for. Plus, his ears as a producer, which we were just talking about earlier, Pat. His ears as a producer is just absolutely insane. Some of the samples he has are just off the chain. And a lot of Griselda beats, obviously, since then, those same producers have used the same samples, whether they know it was used by F.Y.I first or if it was just, them seeing the sample themselves and finding it dope. Obviously, it's anyone's guess, but they use the same sample regardless. So, real recognize real, eh?
Well, I mean, the best song on here is not actually a F.Y.I beat. It's an Earl beat, Nothing But Net, which is Mach and Droog, which is something I also want to get into, is the Mach and Droog relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song it's actually like an old Civil War era song, I almost think, that Earl is sampling here, where it's like somebody singing about General Lee, like as in Robert E.
Yeah.
Which is, but
so hard. Dear General Lee, it's got to be some old soul sample.
Yeah, and the way he chops this and the way they flow over it is so effortless, because there are two different styles of Droog and Mach collabs. One where they do like the 4-bar pass, like Jada and Styles, and one where they each spit a 16. And this is where they each spit a 16, and they both get very involved with it. It's a very deliberate beat, so they're both slow. They're not, but each bar means something, and it's a very deliberate, outstanding song, one of their best. If you hear nothing else off this, hear that song.
Definitely. I think you can also compare that song to another song that Droog did with Mach and F.Y.I. What was it called? Oh, man. From Iron Monkey. The first song that they ever did together, I believe, Saga City, produced by F.Y.I, which is very dope. But it's also very similar in, not really the beat, but just obviously the fact that they're all on it. Very, very another dope track that you can compare.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say this is not one of their most essential collaborations, even though in my review I say that it is. But because essentially it is, even though it's a Mach album, it is definitely a collaborative one. I would say that you're better served by the following album. Unless you have anything else to say about this. I can't believe I have this at an 8. It's actually a 9. Dollar Menu 3. Fucking love Dollar Menu 3.
It's a great cover art.
Oh, yeah.
Great cover art.
So good.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace to Kobe.
Seriously, yeah. And in terms of your point about F.Y.I earlier, Patrick, I haven't heard Mach-Hommy edition yet, so but I know you sent it to me, so I have to listen to it. But in terms of F.Y.I, I feel like I love his beats. I really do. And I've listened to some of his solo stuff a little bit. I love his beats, and like his rapping is like it's not that he's bad or anything. Like, it's not that at all. It's just like from a vocal perspective and like just how he is. Like, it's tough for me to like really go with him for like a full project.
I'll put it.
I mean, like, because it sounds like he's shouting on every song.
Yeah.
This way, I was listening to one Droog and Mach collab that had F.Y.I on it, and I paused it after F.Y.I came on. And I started another Mach F.Y.I song, and F.Y.I was on it, and they had the exact same flow and cadence. If you like, they literally sounded like the song like picked up at the same time, because F.Y.I sounded.
Yeah, a lot of people try and say that it just. A lot of people say that it just sounds like he's reading off the script, which it probably is, but
he just has like that way, almost like Guru, dude, where it's like consistent to a fault, which is what people accuse Currency of being, but I don't see it in Currency, but I definitely hear it in like Guru. I hear it in like, God, Gozy, forgive me, Master Ace sometimes. Although Master Ace is like a lot more clever and varied, at least earlier in his career. But F.Y.I definitely, with the way he puts out, the volume of material he puts out, and the way he raps on all of it, I hear that criticism.
Yeah,
it's like the most like passable music. But really, it's doing a disservice because like I said, I really like his beats. Like
that's the thing. Like when you're listening to his projects, you're like, oh shit, this beat bangs, and then either the verse isn't as cooking as you want it to be, or the next track it's just not as good, in my opinion.
Right.
Like I've listened to probably his whole discography. I'm not gonna lie, the ones that's available at least, and every track, the project has at least one track on it that's like absolute wow. But for some reason, it's just like every project is just, for me at least, so up and down, so inconsistent. There's only a few certain projects where it's like I can actually sit down and listen to the whole thing back to back and not want to turn it off or skip a track. So that's at least my opinion on the dude. But I still think he's got content, which is much more than a lot of rappers that come out these days. And he's got beats, which is dope. So that makes me want to keep coming back to him every time.
Oh, yeah, his beats. And the thing about it is what people don't give producers who rap credit for is they know how to rap over their own beats, right? Like, that's why Oh No is pretty good as a rapper, is because he had practice rapping over his own beats. That's why Madlib is better than he gets credit for, and why the Quasimodo albums are actually great, is because he rapped over his own beats, like that sort of thing. People like produce and that's why it's kind of inexcusable that Dre is using reference tracks from other rappers now, because he doesn't do anything himself. That's why Dre's shit lacks personality now. So that's a credit to Fahim, is that he knows what he sounds good over, and that's why he sounds natural. That's why he's consistent to a fault, though. It's because he's putting out so many of his own beats and rapping the same way. He does lack variation and flow sometimes, and his content is excellent. His writing has gotten better over time and more consistent. I will say that. So, and on Dollar Menu 3, I think the thing about him and Mach that they set each other off well as a duo is that he's straight-faced and Mach is the one with the absurd sense of humor, the one who does vary it up. And they have that sort of chemistry together.
Yeah, 100%. That's what makes them sound so good together, because Mach is so versatile with how his flow is, and Fahim is just the complete opposite, basically. They bounce so good off each other, in my opinion.
I mean, I guess they've referenced it in the cover before, Ghostface and Raekwon, kind of. Like, Raekwon's monotone, Ghostface is animated.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
Raekwon is all details, Ghostface is abstract.
True, and that's part of what makes each of those artists special and who they are, is that uniqueness.
100%. Before I talk about Dollar Menu 3, though, I do just want to mention about a Hommy edition. Something dope about it. It starts off with that voicemail from Rock Marciano, and it ends. And it ends, I believe.
On there. No rock verse on there. What the fuck? Why is rock on there?
But it ends with a sample of Bruce Lee, so I just think that's a nice little bookend and a start. So that's pretty dope. But when it comes to Dollar Menu 3, now that has definitely got to be up there with the G.A.T and HBO as my top Mach projects of all time, let alone collabs with Fahim. Like, a lot of the songs on there are solely just Mach himself, like Chicken Milk Bomb, Intermittent Spurts, and of course the infamous Sus Vida, which obviously, in my opinion, is one of his best songs. But of course, it has the infamous beat which you were talking about on the last podcast, the beat which was taken from Madlib, the Avalanche beat.
Well, eventually he just raps so hard the beat goes away. So maybe the beat the beat was kidnapped and then it escaped.
Well, that is, in my opinion, that is a reference to Wu-Tang Forever on Cash Still Rules, where at the end of it, Ghostface just keeps on rhyming and the beat ends and he just keeps on rhyming.
Okay. Okay.
Also, because on that track, this is why we have you on the show. But also on that track, if I can find it in my notes here, he mentions he interpolates Mobb Deep bars on that same song. He says the same energy you put out, it comes right back and revolves, you fraud. And Prodigy on Genesis from HNIC said, don't forget your soul's involved. The same energy you put out, it comes right back and revolves. So, and he also says, Queens get the money, all I play is Mobb Deep these days. So he's simultaneously stealing, quote unquote, the beat from Madlib, while he's referencing Prodigy and Mobb Deep, saying that's all he plays these days, while he's also interpolating bars from the same dude, Prodigy. So,
God damn it!
That's that song. That song
Holy shit! Okay.
That song is like what, a minute and 40 seconds long, and that's what I got out of that. So
I will completely concede that whole thing to you. Holy shit!
Yeah, that is a fucking brain blast on the podcast right there. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And that's only one song, you know. Like, there's a lot of other different songs where, you know, on Mach's Hard Lemonade, sorry to move all around the board here.
Mach's Hard Lemonade, we're going to talk for like an hour about, because it's so dense. That's the best thing about Mach's Hard Lemonade, is that he refines it. Like, my biggest problem with the early Mach releases is that they're long, and he keeps pruning and pruning and pruning, and people got mad about Mach's Hard Lemonade being short. That's one of its greatest assets.
That's
like
one,
some rap songs, is that there is not a wasted fucking breath. I even love the skit. Like,
there's no reason
in an MF Doom sort of way where it's used as a piece that holds together the whole.
Yeah, comparing it to HBO when you were talking about the length earlier, I see what you're saying about pruning. It definitely makes sense now with the more recent releases and the lengths. But obviously, we'll come to MHL later. So,
right. But yeah, this is incredible, fucking infinitely re-listenable. Best use of Mach and F.Y.I together, except for Notorious Dump Legends, which we'll get to briefly soon. The choice of production on this is out of this world. I don't have the credits on hand immediately, but I believe it's like Sadu Gold. Is Iwani on here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's Iwani, Obliv, Preservation, Camouflage Monk, Nicholas Craven, Farmer Beats.
If you know these names, you know this is just the murderer's fucking row of what you could like. It's amazing.
And for a release in 2017 as well, like these are all names that you see on every project now in 2020 or 2019. Every project, these producers are on it. And this is when they were in their prime, 2017. Every project had some of these producers on it, and now big names in the underground, you know.
Exactly. Mach had an ear for what sounded great, what was new, what was going to be popular, but also what suited him best. And yeah, this album, I can't say enough good about it. I don't want to dwell on it too much.
Well, I mean, there are some pretty rough lowlights, I will say. I mean,
the last song to me isn't the best.
No, I actually like that song. I was talking about what was the like Suspended Anime?
Not
a great track.
That's one of my favorite Mach songs ever, man.
I don't know. I'm not
I would have to hear it to know. I would hear
the way F.Y.I goes in on that one, man, is insane. Like, what's that bar he says? Let me pull up the lyrics.
Actually, I have to go to the secret link, I think, about that one. But
what's the name of the song again? Suspended Anime.
Suspended Anime.
There's a bootleg of it that misspells it as Suspender Anime, so you need to be careful for that one.
Well, also there's intermittent spurts, right? That's the one. That's the with some cringe lines there.
Intermittent spurts. Actually, there's a lot of cringe. If it's F.Y.I, then there's probably going to be a cringe line in there somewhere.
Right, like, and he'll deliver it in the same cadence.
No, it was the well, F.Y.I has that weird one about just coming in people's hair, or the girl's hair. But there's
I think I've listened to enough Kool Keith songs where he does that like every other verse that I've just become numb to hearing.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, I've got to mention these bars from Intermittent Spurts. Now you brought it up. He says, "Creamy fish stew Bellini, creamy veni vidi vici, where it's through, itty bitty committee, little pretty dimples." Menstrual blood, driving gloves.
All right, okay.
Nutting ass bitch. You better push the button, sucking that dick.
All right, that's great. All right, that's pretty bad. I'm not going to defend that. That's pretty bad. I can't believe I forgot about that.
I am absolutely butchering this, but when he spit, the way Mac can spit anything and make it sound like it's, he's spitting 57 double entendres. Doesn't matter what he's saying, it's going to sound dope.
He's probably talking about cocaine. It still sounds disgusting. It sounds worse when you say it, obviously, but it still sounds funny.
But I also want to obviously mention the track on there where he's dissing Dope or Dark Media, however you say Dope, the record label.
Yeah.
So obviously the shit that they pulled with the first $2 menu editions. Obviously
they're still making a lot of money, by the way. Fuck those guys. Like, they seem like real culture assholes. Fuck them.
Well, that's a whole other podcast, I think, definitely.
I mean, we make a lot of friends on this podcast, as you can tell by the fact that we have like almost 100 viewers on most of them. And when we get over 100 viewers, we get like a lot of downvotes. So yeah, we're really good at like, social media and networking, making friends, influencing people and stuff. But fuck that record label. They
speak for yourself. I think I'm pretty. I think I'm pretty good at networking. I would hold that.
You definitely did some good networking with that Wale fan base.
The Wale fan base is definitely that was independent of the podcast, mind you. I didn't even tell them I had a podcast. I'm sure they would have run to listen to it. It's like, hey, wait,
you guys want to? Did you guys want to mention the first two dollar menus before we moved on? Or
I haven't heard either in a while. I have to look.
In a while.
I've heard the first one. That's it.
I've heard both. I think that the second was better than the first. I liked both.
Well, there's 3 songs on the second one that use the exact same sample, which is completely fire. They're all produced by Sadu Gold, and they're all completely different. So definitely, when you listen to that again, I'm sure you'll notice that.
I like Sadu Gold, man. I like him as a producer. Like he's better than a lot of dudes who get a lot more work. Like I prefer him to Apollo Brown or Static Selecta or a lot of those guys.
Wow. I definitely can't agree with that. But it's up and down for me. Like some of the beats that he's got for Mach and F.Y.I are very left field and experimental, which is not really always my vibe. But
I appreciate somebody who takes chances like that than somebody who plays it safe 99% of the time, for sure.
I feel that, definitely. Yeah.
That's why I give a lot of Al Divino stuff a chance too. Like again, I've mentioned Monumentality, I think more in the chats than I have on the show, but that album is ridiculous and people should definitely listen to it. It's almost the new Supreme Clientele in a lot of ways. And I think time is going to really vindicate that album. It's really tremendous stuff. And yeah, there's no real backdoor way to talk about it on the show. And lyrically, it's a lot of gibberish, but it's a lot of great sounding gibberish. So you yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like a movie. That whole album, definitely like a movie. Feels like one. But I think it uses a lot of similar samples from the Nicola album and the Vader album. Maybe not similar, but it sounds similar.
Was that the one with the dumbass fucking fake Russian guy on all the tracks?
Yeah, that was the one.
That ruined it.
I'm pretty sure that's Divino, but I could be wrong about that. But
I think it was whack. I think it was Divino and SD. I think that was like a collab album, but still.
Yeah, that was definitely trash in my opinion. Both of those.
Oh yeah, no, that was one of Divino's low effort projects. So
I really feel bad for people who purchase that or have that on vinyl because that must be very, very hard for their ears. But moving on.
Yeah, moving on to things that like more than 10 people have heard or know what we're talking about. So,
what's next?
Yeah, what's the next one? Dumpmeister. Oh, Dumpmeister, which is basically the Mach equivalent of a producer Rolodex album, except it's him rapping against anybody. It's basically Mach. I like to compare this to the Roots Rising Down, kind of, where it was doing a lot of rapping against people to just prove he's the best. That's kind of how I see Dumpmeister.
But it's definitely, for me, it's definitely him bringing together all the people that he was like tight with at that point, or wanted to make tracks with and put them all on one record. So,
I mean, that's probably the people within his budget that he wanted to rap against the most. You only have him rapping with Fahim once, as opposed to every track like normal. So
this is true, and there's no Fahim production on there at all either. So,
and we're going to disagree about this. Billy Wood steals this album. Only time Mach has ever had an album stolen from him, and he's rapped alongside Earl multiple times.
Yeah, he's definitely got a powerful verse on that 383 Metal, and I'm pretty sure that the title of that refers to the coordinates of the house on the front cover of the album. I'm pretty sure.
Rob, you might be right on that. I also feel like the album covers a reference to something that I'm not certain about. The last three, but the run of the last three last three tracks, the Billy feature, Denmark Vassie, who's really underrated, and then Mayhem Loren, who I was thinking about actually as a rapper, like in terms of like, there are certain rappers who have a style where it's just they just power punch at you. It's like Percy P, Meek Mill, Mayhem Loren's kind of in that style, where it's just like nonstop flurry. And you don't want to hear that all the time, but when he's really hitting, it really works. And that's one track where it really works.
Yeah, I've heard people saying they didn't really flop with Mayhem's verse on that, man, but I definitely thought it was pretty dope. They definitely bring out a good thing in each other.
Oh, and the Faraday Cage is one of the best. Oh, and Faraday Cage is an all-time classic.
Oh yeah, of course, man. That was on Dump Goat as well, the Dump Goat album.
Right, and it's on here. It's got evidence on here, so.
Mm-hmm. Fire.
Yeah, I just heard this like yesterday, and
wow, what do you think?
I thought it was great. I thought it's one of his probably one of his strongest efforts. I would go track 6 down, honestly, as like my favorite run. To Patrick, I mentioned the last 3 songs, but I think from like Gourmandise down is like pretty insane. Like that's to me like makes the album. Not that the songs before that weren't good, obviously, but those are like
stronger as it goes.
Yeah, that's the thing. The songs before were like real, strong songs, and then that like last 5 or 6 tracks are like, fucking awesome songs. Like it goes from being really good to really great in that second half, like you said.
Yeah, definitely ratchets it up the ante, definitely around that midway point.
And 383
really hard too. Melanin 9 does kick it off super hard.
That's the thing. This album's so up and down though. Like it starts off so hard, and then the second track it's just like so wavy, and then the Crime Apple track it's like again it's so all over the place.
Although the Crime Apple track does have one of probably the best Sopranos related punchline ever, where it's like you're on your own, like when Vito ate the Johnny cakes.
Mach would have some of the best Sopranos bars. Like
that was actually Crime Apple though. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. See, listen to it once. That's my fair. In fairness,
I'll burn every blade of grass till I find a snake. The bars on that track are so hard, and they got like 3 minutes each on that track, but I just cannot fuck with that beat at all. I hate it so much. I really do.
Well, to your point, though, about how it switches up a lot, you have beats from, like, Knxwledge on here, but then it goes to, like, a navy blue beat. But then it goes to, like, Alchemist. But then it goes, like, Knxwledge again. Like, it's the variation.
It's so up and down. Yeah.
The variation in producers, I think, definitely, like, contributes to it. Not, like, it still manages to be cohesive, but it has, like, a lot of different input, Like, we know with Mach projects, he's done a lot of stuff with just one guy, but I like the variation here.
Well, he wouldn't have done that. He hadn't done that yet, though. Like he was starting. I feel like. I mean, basically, not on HBO, but I feel like he was starting to really hone his approach here. Feel out who he really wanted to work with.
Mm.
And
it's a shorter album. It's 33 minutes, 11 tracks.
Yeah, most of the tracks are really short, except for the Crime Apple one where they both go really long, and they're both really good. Like, Crime Apple is somebody I'm back and forth on personally. Like, he has some really great projects. He has some where I don't really like hearing him for the course of the whole album. But I think that he fits in really well here. I think all the features are really well used here. Like, I feel like everybody was well chosen. But the last 3 are the ones that truly stand out. Crime Apple, and then last 3. Melanin 9 kicks it off well. Crime Apple's great, but the last 3 are my favorite features.
Yeah, my favorite songs on that definitely got to be the Basquiat, the Ron Van Cleef as well, definitely. The beat on that is just so heavenly, man. It's beautiful.
Oh, Ron Van Cleef is my favorite beat, though. Like, that's actually, that beat.
So heavenly.
That's a Fahim beat, right?
No, there's no Fahim beats on there. That's
shit,
Knxwledge.
You're right. Who the fuck did the Ron Van Cleef beat? I don't want to.
Knxwledge.
Oh, yeah,
Mark's favorite, Knxwledge.
That's one of that's the thing about, like, I think that's why they like working together so much, is that Fahim, not Fahim, although Fahim to a degree, but mainly Mach does not care about the difficulty of or the weirdness of the Knxwledge beat. He will rap over it. Who else has tried? Like, I mean, Kendrick had a Knxwledge beat, quote unquote, but not really.
What track was that?
That wasn't a Knxwledge beat? I thought it was a Knxwledge beat.
It was, but it wasn't
like,
you know what I mean? Mama, right?
Yeah.
Oh, from Pimp Butterfly.
Yeah.
Right. But you know what I mean when I say a Knxwledge beat? Like, I think that Aaron knows this more than Optimal does. Like, a weird ass, lo-fi, fuzzed out, like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, but there's also a lot of knowledge beats that don't have necessarily sound like, lo-fi beats to chill and study to. Like, it's not. It's not just.
He doesn't do
like
that. Like, I don't.
I'm fucking around. Give me. I'm just.
You knew that was going to piss me off.
Of course, I knew it was going to piss you off. You shaded me with the knowledge disrespect. Like I don't listen to knowledge.
Disrespect is your knowledge.
Not exactly my knowledge of KNX. No, I think, but knowledge. I mean, maybe it's only in the last 5 years or so, but knowledge. A lot of his beats do have like a warmer sound to them, like everything he's ever done with like Anderson .Paak, for example.
Correct. I feel like
true, but isn't that like R&B kind of stuff? So it's kind of going to go that route.
He always did the Hexual Ceiling stuff. Like he always did, like in his remixes, he would always do that sort of thing. But I don't think he ever felt comfortable working with a rapper. Like, I mean, the only rapper he really worked with aside from Earl was Mach, and he worked with Mach a lot more extensively than he did with Earl, at least that we've heard.
Well, you don't think he's been working with Meek Mill?
I mean, clearly he has. They got 5 albums together.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the thing with Mach and Knxwledge is it's not exactly like they were working together. I think the thing was that Knxwledge gave him a bunch of beats, and then he just used them at whatever point he wanted to. Because there's a lot of F.Y.I tracks which just F.Y.I over Knxwledge beats. I assume
a better way to put this was Knxwledge probably sent beats to a lot of rappers. I'm like, I can't rap over this shit. Fuck this. And then Mach could.
Well, there's a lot of we'll talk about this when we get onto the Spook, but there's a lot of beats that from that album that you can actually hear on a lot of different other Knxwledge projects that are out there. So,
I mean, that's the thing about Knxwledge. I've heard all this shit, but I can't place it by track title because, first of all, he spells the shit really weird, and then
true. So when we talk about, I guess this is a good segue to go into the Spooks. I'm not sure if it's next, but it's a good segue.
Actually, we're skipping EP. It's all 2017. We can either talk about the Gospel According to G.A.T. or Spook. Let's talk about Spook. Then
we might as well go into that direction.
We'll talk about Spook. We already transitioned into the Spook, so let's talk about the Spook. This album's fucking amazing. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, this is really good. I also heard this recently. I think with the track that's in French, which I just can't pronounce, that's my favorite.
Bon après-midi?
Yes. Yeah. That track's awesome.
Beautiful,
I think his double entendres and writing on the first track are out of this world. If you listen to that track again, he's saying like every line has 2 meanings, and he says like some have 3 meanings, and he says it in a way that's actually like kind of like fucking like making fun of you for listening to it. It's called Tiddlywinks. He's not even spelling Tiddlywinks right. He's misspelling Tiddlywinks. He's misspelling a child's game. And then it's so fucking funny. And then he has one track where he just kind of does like a Hexual Ceilings Knxwledge sing-along thing, which is he gets on the producer's wavelength. When we get to the Earl album, which I guess we'll do after this, or the Earl EP, like Earl's like he gets Earl in a mode that you never hear Earl in, where he's chopping soul samples, and he does like more of a sort of straight ahead boom bap battle rap performance than you ever hear out of him anywhere else. On this one, he kind of explores shit. Like he does a track where he kind of sings along in his terrible singing voice, and it works. Doot 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 has the dumbest hook of all time.
It's very dumb.
I love it.
I knew he was going to hit on that. I knew it.
I love it so much.
Okay,
we couldn't get West Side Gun on there. I know we couldn't, but like
we actually really couldn't. Like he'd be really mad if you asked him.
He would, but he should have.
It was that era too. Like, come on.
I guess some guy in the comment box hates Shapeshifter. Fuck you. That song great.
That song and Bon Après-Midi for me, 2 of Mark's best solo performances, definitely.
It's a big tonal shift from the rest of the album for both Mach and Knxwledge, but it really works. The way he steps it up on that. Yeah. The rapping on this is on another level. It feels like he's very off the cuff rapping on this. Like some Mach releases, you can tell where he wrote something and he wants to say something, and others where it just feels like he's riffing. And even when he writes something, he's still riffing off of it. This feels very much like, and the Gospel According to G.A.T. is going to be even more like that. where he's just feeling off the top of his head. And it sounds great because it's appropriate to the instrumentals. And that's what I get off of this.
Definitely. Well, that's how like you say, with when he works with a producer, he knows how to go off them. F.Y.I especially, but these projects definitely show his versatility and his willingness to not necessarily change, but to adapt himself to whatever environment that he's in, and still make it sound like a Mach-Hommy project, and B, something fresh and new.
And this was probably the first one I heard, and I didn't get it at first. I'm sure I just like got mad at doot. I was like, why? It's 5 minutes long.
Well, I know you personally have had a love-hate relationship with Mach-Hommy's discography from the beginning, but the Dump God's discography definitely contain a lot of material that just grows on you after continuous listens.
It really does. Like, there's something about his delivery that just sticks with you. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It has a quality he shares it with Currency, kind of. Although Currency stuff I feel is more immediately appealing, because Currency I immediately liked, although didn't love. Whereas Mach, a lot of this I was just like, I'm listening to it for the producers. But I kept coming back to it. I've come back to this topic on the podcast before, but it's like, yeah, I started listening to it because it was Earl producing or Knxwledge producing, and then I just kept coming back to it, being like, okay, this guy's a little monotone. In retrospect, again, I think monotone is he's not monotone.
Definitely not. No, definitely not. It's just his flow. That's just how he sounds. If you listen,
and
to
also the way he chooses to record his voice.
That's how he talks.
And also the way he chooses to record his voice.
That is the way he talks in his interviews too. Like, that's him. So he's being authentic, which I also obviously have to respect. So.
And I think the lo-fi aesthetic, me and Tina and Knxwledge were just very natural collaborators. So, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I love this album. I think the Earl one's better, though.
Well, a few other things, obviously, I wanted to mention about the Spook. There's a dope bar on it where he says, on Bon Après Midi, he says, I'm a hot boy till I die. What's the integers? Long 49311. Now,
okay, yeah, I was thinking about that bar. What is that bar exactly?
Well, recently, Droog and F.Y.I released a new song called The Mailman. On the front cover of the single, there's some dude who's got like a bag on his head, some stupid bullshit, and there's like a post box next to him, and it's got the Goots, and it's number 49311. Now, this obviously made people like, what's going on here? But someone commented on the post on Twitter saying, this reminds me of Capadonna's verse on Winter Wars. So obviously I looked it up, and obviously remember it anyway. It says, smoke a blunt and dial 917-162-49311, and you can get long dick hip hop affection. So the numbers 49311 correspond with the letters in the alphabet for the word dick. So obviously, Mark's saying on Bon Après Midi, he's got a long dick. Now, obviously, I'm going to say pause there because obviously I'm talking about dude, but at the end of the day, that's what he's saying. So the mathematics is deep. So when people are trying to say he's just talking or he's just off the rip, while he might sound like that a majority of the time, guarantee that every single verse he's probably ever written has got an underlying meaning to it, and that's just another one.
Well, when he and Droog work together, they definitely work on a deeper level, and that's that just blew my fucking mind. By the way, you just blew my mind to fucking bacon bits with that shit.
Like, it's like the third time he's done it already on the podcast.
It's not going to be the last, don't worry.
Wow. Oh, I mean, shout out to Capadonna on Winter Wars. Is that the best Wu Posse cut, or Winter Wars or Triumph?
That's very hard to. I probably would say it was either of those. There's so many. The Fourth Chamber with Killer Priest, Ghostface, Inspector Deck. So many different tracks where I can't say. I'm a Wu-Tang stan at the end of the day. I can't say which one's going to be the best. Protect Your Neck 2 from ODB's debut with Brooklyn Zoo and Son of the Man.
I mean, just even with Supreme Clientele, you also have Buck 50 and Wu Bang.
Yeah, Wu Bang 101. Hard, buddy.
Oh, man, the way fucking Ghost comes in at the end of Wu Bang 101 with the second verse you don't expect. Rev ain't right. His church ain't right. Like, oh my God. Like, yeah.
I think Triumph, though, takes it for me because it's one of the few times that lyrical spiritual miracle, like literally lyrical spiritual miracle rap in every sense of the word sounds amazing. Like
lyrical spiritual miracle on Triumph.
It's probably the best Deck, I would say.
Yeah, like...
I guess Deck, if you think about I Bomb Atomically.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to, yeah.
I told you.
Dropping these.
Yeah. That's where,
okay, fair enough. That's
Inspector Deck at his prime in the early 90s, or the mid-90s, sorry, is probably the best of the whole Wu-Tang in that era.
All of
the beats on his original debut album got lost in the flood, and he had to re-record his whole album. It's very unfortunate because that would have been a fucking fire project.
I mean, there were some people in that style who could kill that. It was like Deck in his prime, Keith, Prince Poe sometimes, like Organized Confusion Prince Poe. I think the last time Prince Poe could really do that was on the Project Polaroid album. Trying to think who else. There are very few people who can do that style really well. Eminem thinks he can, but he can't.
Right, and that's what I'm referring to. Like, obviously, this stuff was made before the concept of like lyrical spiritual miracle was like a thing. But what I mean by that is that, like, where it's not just, oh, this guy's rapping well. It's like this guy is saying a bunch of gibberish and stringing it together and with bars with a Z on the end of it. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. But obviously, Wu-Tang excelled at that. Ghostface, free association.
To round it off about the Spook, obviously I wanted to mention obviously the beats. There's an interview with Spook from 2019, I think, where he mentioned Spook with Sadu, where he says with Knxwledge, where he says that he met Mark at Alchemist Studio and gave him a bunch of beats. So I assume that's when obviously he gave him all the beats that he probably went on to use in his career. But 3 of the songs from that tape were on different projects. One of them is called Let You Leave from one of his projects. Another one is called Time and Tide, which is from Hood Dreams, and also Overcookies. Overcookies, which is the Bon Après Midi beat. Time and Tide, which is the Muertos beat. And the Let You Leave, which I honestly can't remember which one it is, but obviously all those original beats that you can find on other Knxwledge projects, which he released obviously after the Spook project as well. And also the track that Knxwledge produced on Fresh Off the Boat from HBO has the same sample as Simbi from Wap Konn Jòj.
But you can't hear that track anymore on Spotify.
Or SoundCloud, because obviously Knxwledge is not very happy with Mach-Hommy. Obviously, I also wanted to address on this podcast about the beef. Knxwledge did a remix of Gold Pots with Westside, Mark, and Conway. Put it on one of his newest remix projects. Obviously, that's what Knxwledge usually does with his remixes. And Mark didn't like that, as you can imagine. So he got the track taken down and a DMCA letter sent to Knxwledge's home address, which obviously, as you can imagine, he didn't like. So he decided to start posting in his Discord, his private Discord, to all of his fans about how much he thought that Mac was, quote, a bomb, and stole all of his beats and never gave him any money. Same with F.Y.I. So he eventually obviously got Fresh Off the Boat taken down, and I'm guessing he's probably working on getting all of the other stuff probably wiped from the internet as well.
Well, I mean, you can't get the Spook on Spotify. I'm pretty sure I'd look for it.
No, you can't. You can get it on YouTube, but it's like individual tracks you have to look for.
I mean, YouTube, yes. Spotify, no. I mean,
no. Yes, first of all, no streaming platform has much of Mach-Hommy anyway, because
that's exactly what I was just going to say.
He's against it, right? So he's not gonna.
Although he did put Mock's Hard Lemonade on Tidal.
He did, which is goes back to the he and Jay have been hanging out, so.
Well, we'll get to that.
That's another thing, yeah.
Yeah, so he and Knxwledge have beef now. Knxwledge has a long-standing history of having beef with, he had beef with Anderson, he had beef with Earl, now he has beef with Mock. So I don't know who you put they're both very individualistic people. I feel like it's very hard to take a side in this one because I feel like they both would probably piss off whoever they work with no matter what.
Well, it's like you were saying in the last podcast about how he's quote unquote stealing beats. Like if he didn't pay any money to him, then maybe that is the case. But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, if Knxwledge gave him loads of beats and he wanted to get paid for it, maybe he should have asked when he gave him the beats. Like,
right? Maybe he should have asked before he started hanging out with Jay-Z. Right? Maybe he should have asked before he started hanging out with Jay-Z. Now all of a sudden it seems like more of an imperative question. I don't know, but
obviously he did charge like thousands of dollars for this shit, which I can understand why he's a bit mad, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, to get back to that discussion, like, I got really salty about Mach doing that, but, you know, Milo would say on the Nostrum Grocers tape, it's a $1,000 mixtape because I say so, and he would literally sell a $1,000 cassette. I was cool with that.
didn't
But it's
Milo?
because he also had the $10 digital album to go with it. It's like maybe if Mach would also offer, like, if he had something like that where it's like, I don't know. But I get
Milo
what he was
recently
doing.
released a tape. Didn't Milo recently release a tape that was for $77?
But he would also have the music out there for free, but it was the physical thing that he would charge because the physical thing was the art in that case.
There you go. In Mach's case, so he likes to charge for both. So.
I mean, I still see what Mach's doing. He's changing the conversation and making some money off of it. Before, I was more apt to think he was just kind of making money off of it. Maybe he is. I don't know. But I do know that the music is worth a lot, so I can see where he'd be confident enough. And rappers are supposed to be confident, right? So,
indeed.
What's more
also
confident
wanted to mention another one.
Fete Morte.
There's one last note on the Spook. There's a skit on there. PTRF ML blah blah blah.
Oh,
Uses the same beat for a little known Mach single called Selfie Stick. So another one for the Mach enthusiasts listening there to do the knowledge.
Selfie sticks. Shout out to you if you invested in selfie sticks. You probably are doing very poorly right now. Moving on to Fete Morte, aka Dia de la Muerto. Fucking amazing album. This is probably the first one I heard because when does Earl Sweatshirt produce an album for somebody else? When does Earl Sweatshirt produce an album at this point? Like, he wasn't, even for himself. And this has just grown on me. At first, this is where I got the monotone thing from. Also, the one I have has 2 tracks at the end that aren't on the RYM list, where the jig is up in Causality.
Causality, yeah.
I also have that one.
And
not sure why they're not on the RYM release. That's strange.
Oh, wait, is it the secondary one? Bonus tracks downloadable. Yeah, well, the bonus one has the jig is up, but not Causality, which is weird because Causality is the one where it feels like he's trying to tie it together with a statement. Because
Causality is produced by Knxwledge, and they did actually that was actually released as a single on a 7-inch, I believe. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, Causality is like his most direct. Like every other track on here is a brag track, Bride of the Water God, which kind of sounds like Earl doing. There are 2 tracks on here that sound like Earl doing Dilla. I feel like back to back, Mondre Midi and Bride of the Water God both sound like Earl doing Dilla to me.
Mondre is probably my favorite song on there, along with Embarrassment of Riches.
And Bride of the Water God is kind of him doing story track a little bit like if you think about Ghostface on High on Fish Scale, or whichever one where he's supposed to be like on the subway and then he's trying to hit on a chick, and then like his face fell when I dropped the chrome. You know what I'm talking about?
Does it ring a bell?
No, I guess not. It's a story track on Fish Scale where like he's trying to rap to a chick, and he like lights her cigarette and whatever, and then like she's kind of into him, but then like his gun falls out of his pocket while he's like trying to spit game to her, and then she like gets sad.
Oh, I think I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. I haven't listened to Fish Scale in a while.
I know there's one on there with the crackpot skit. I'm not sure.
No, that's the one where he raps about ODB's Coke napkin.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
I know the album.
Pete Rock beat. But yeah, that kind of had that vibe to it, which is interesting because I feel like there's a really pronounced Ghostface influence to how Mach does things. Most of these are just like battle raps, but with like a lot of really, really vivid details to them, and the way he riffs on themes, like within, like every time I listen to this, I pick up on something new. Like at first, it just seemed like he was just doing punchlines, but then like the more you listen to it, the punchlines are super involved. Like he's really fucking smart on these punchlines. Over a beat, and like it's the most direct rapidy rap album he ever does, like because he's got Earl gave him like beats that are very like sort of simple, like soul sample-y beats, but they're really good and really emotive. Like Earl really picked good samples for this.
I agree with you. The only thing I don't like about it that much, the beats, is that some of them are a little bit choppy, but Mach definitely makes some work with his flow. in my opinion.
Right. It just feels very simple, direct, but the beats being simple, Mach does something complex within their simplicity.
Definitely. There's a bar in it when he goes, "Ayo, that's a pickle. Your life is like a sandwich. Either way, I'm
yes! I'm about my pumpernickel. Yes!
Yeah.
I love that
Such
shit,
a hard
dude.
bar. Such a hard bar. Such a hard bar.
Yeah.
The amount of Patrick talks about this all the time, but like he really is just a very strange guy.
I would say strange. I would say intelligent.
I don't mean strange.
I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, but just how you string some thoughts and words together in his music, like it's just one of one, really. I mean, even with all of the obvious, like, you know, influence from Ghostface and, you know, maybe some other that came before him, like, it's just
Doom. I would say there's the
Not Deep and Ghostface, definitely, especially.
Doom for sure, for sure. I don't know. It's just
he just kind of speeds it off when he does it, though. It just feels very natural. It's very addictive, and then you get more of what he's saying because it's like.
Well, it gives him more of a personality versus just like monotone guy rapping. Like, I think that's really important with Mach, is like you kind of get the personality as you go further into the music.
100%. That's what I'm saying about re-listening to it. That's what makes you think, oh shit, I missed that. You should get into it 3 albums later and then you go back.
I also feel like he has a different approach for every producer he works with. He had a different approach for Knxwledge than he did for Earl, than he did for Muggs. Although I feel like there's something between the Earl one and the Muggs one. Let's look.
Definitely. There's something different for every project. Also wanted to mention the fact that on one of the tracks...
Oh, yeah, of course. The Gospel According to. Now, who produced it? Who produced this shit?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It is quite unsure. It's either Knxwledge or August Fanon. I think someone said that Fanon produced most of it, and then Knxwledge produced a few.
I said that, didn't I? I think
someone in Knxwledge Discord chat, I think, said that Knxwledge said to him on the DM that he produced some of the tracks on it.
It sounds nothing like anything Knxwledge has ever done, dude. This sounds like Mos Def the Ecstatic to me, and this sounds like. I don't really feel like Mach sounds too much like Mos Def anywhere else in his discography, but here he does. The way he flows is very melodic, very jazzy sort of inflections in the way he does stuff. Like, he's always kind of flowing off the top of his head, but here it feels like he's doing it in kind of a way where it's got like that. I hate to keep using jazzy in it, but there's, especially with the first track, it gets less like that, but there's also
the first track is
just incredible.
The first track,
the fact that it says he shouts out August Fanon on the intro as well, so it definitely indicates that at least that track was produced by him at least.
And I would say that this has more of a Fanon feel than a Knxwledge feel to it, and that he's the one credited on RYM. So, but yeah, this is essential fucking Mach.
Yeah, this is. I
mean, like you said about the jazz influence on it, his bars reflect that 100%. Just like you were saying about all the way he approaches different projects with different producers. This one is the exact same. All the beats, he's so in tune with every single one. Especially the first track alone, his flow on that, it's so jazzy. It's so free flowing, so stream of consciousness. It just goes, but crazy. It's so crazy.
My favorite track on here is first of all, this is my favorite Mach album. It's the one I've listened to the most. Like, this is an excellent album.
Got good taste, man. You got good taste.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also like, you know, it seems like the Mach album, at least on the website. But I will say my favorite track here is it's either 2 or 3. What's the one where he starts off the song and the hook of the song is he fucks college professors on their lunch breaks?
College professors on their lunch break enunciate every last.
Yeah, I mean, my man straight up said.
Blew it down the hallway.
He's like, "Hey, bro, English professor, like lunch break." That's just what. But so, what is that?
Number 8. Number 8.
Is that 2 or 3?
Number 8.
Oh, it's 8. See, I'm way off. That's the problem with the numerals. I don't remember track names.
A lot of these tracks as well, he's just barring. There's not even any hooks on most of these. He's just barring.
No. There are like little like mantras here and there, but it's mostly like you said, yeah.
Which is why I like to compare it to songs like Sus Vida, like a short song, snappy song that could have easily belonged on there, easily. He also samples Jay-Z a lot on those tracks. a lot. Like number 5 is obviously the first word is the M word, but there's repeated sample of him saying "ask about me." Hard body intro.
The way he flows on this is just so addictive. He has so many smart lines that you won't catch on the first, second, third, or fourth listen. It also kind of reminds me of Currency on something like Famous or Elevator Music, something like that, where it's just something very smooth and like Currency over Ski Beats, like Pilot Talk Currency type of thing, almost.
That's an interesting.
Which makes sense because Jay worked with Ski on Reasonable Doubt, so that had to be kind of a reference point for Mach's flows a little bit.
Maybe.
And most worked with Ski Beats, of course. So
true. Yeah, his barring on that album is just top notch, top level lyricism. Beautiful album. I don't know about worth the price. The vinyl definitely looks like very beautiful as well, but worth the price. If I was rich, maybe, but I'm not. So,
like I had a bit on a recent podcast where I was like, I'm homeless because I keep buying these Mach-Hommy vinyls on the table. I don't have a house, but I have all these Mach-Hommy vinyls.
How much would your wife kill you if you bought a $3,000 Mach-Hommy album?
I don't know, but I'd be like, here, have some lemonade. Sit down.
This is the marriage counseling bill would be astronomical for that one. It's just incredible. But yeah.
I mean, I would have to be able to walk on water like Peter. Or don't go like Peter. But
I wanted to mention as well on another track, we totally skipped over it, but a track on the Fate and Morts where he references Emperor Palpatine, Scooby-Doo, and Richie Valens all on the same track.
That's really, MF Doom. That's MF Doom right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Very interesting.
Shout out to Jermaine, I'm here carrying your water, defending your viewpoints that some guy got mad about. Now I have to sit here and.
What was Jermaine's exact gripe, rather?
I mean, it was a lot of gripes more about how Moxie's arrogant and how it's just a lack of originality in his approach.
When you said that he didn't have any original ideas.
I feel like we kind of fleshed it out pretty well on the episode, actually, at the detriment of talking about Mach's Hard Lemonade, which we will get to. And
you definitely rounded it out, man, but needed another second opinion.
We'll get to that one because that's an absolutely tremendous album that really deserves a better appraisal than we gave it on the show. Even though I think we were positive about it on the show, we just kind of ran out of time. We were too busy shitting on him for charging so much goddamn money and acting like wearing a mask was an original thing to do. Although now wearing a mask is apparently an original thing to do around here sometime, which is a whole other thing. So,
it's become optional for some reason.
Hey, Florida, you can now have a restaurant with 100% occupancy.
It seems like I don't know about you, Patrick, but that seems like a great idea.
Seems like a really just fucking tremendous idea that the time has come for that. So
definitely won't backfire at all.
Anyway, moving on to more related topics. So we were
the G.A.T. That's what was that.
G.A.T. Are we still on the gospel? Yeah. Are we still on gospel according to, or do we?
I think we covered that pretty well. One of those best albums. So.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's just I can't get the document to actually load to the lyrics because the lyrics on it are great. That's the thing. I have a lot of things I want to say about the lyrics, but I don't want to get too caught up in just like analyzing lyric by bar with Mach because that could take forever. We could spend 6 hours on his lyrics for any album. So, but his lyrics are really good. That's the thing is he's really good at delivering like melodic, addictive hook like flows that you come back to and then you realize he's saying something.
Indeed.
There's a reference there that you didn't catch. You just thought it was addictive the way he said it. And I think this album,
without even trying to transcribe the lyrics on Genius, without even trying to transcribe the lyrics or nothing like that on Genius or some shit like that, you're still going to find a reference that you're going to try and Google 10 minutes later and try and spend 5 hours trying to find out what the fuck it means. So there ain't many rappers in the game that do that. There really ain't.
Right. I mean, if only somebody had transcribed Mach's lyrics, we'd be able to fucking know what he's talking about. So, but yeah,
we don't want to get arrested. So.
But yeah, so moving on from the gospel according to, there's one that unfortunately Octal and I did not get a chance to hear in the lead up to this show. I've heard it once and I was not super fond of it, even though I liked the production on it from what I recall with Luh Hertz. I'm pronouncing that badly.
Never jazzy. Very, very jazzy again.
And with this was him in his relationship bag, as best I can tell. Like, this was Mach kind of spitting to the ladies a little bit, which is not really what you think of when you think of Mach-Hommy.
Yeah, definitely. It's another, obviously, you can tell from the title, obviously, another similar concept to Bulletproof Love. So
yeah, so those were two
songs for the ladies.
Same time period, possibly the same sessions. And you do think very highly of this. So you, by the way, have a lot of very you were very generous with the 4.5 stars in your 2012 days. By the way, just saying.
Yeah, I mean, 2012 was a big year for me. I'm not gonna lie. That was a good year. Blue Chips, Big Crit, Smoke Bizzer, Currency around that area. There's a lot of really hype MCs. I'm just
did you like the new
pissed
Bronson?
off that I wasn't. I'm just pissed off I wasn't. Sorry.
Did you like the new Bronson?
I didn't play that yet, but everything I've heard,
good. You'll like it. You'll like it.
Everything I've heard is nice. So.
It is good. It's nice to see Bronson still. He's still got it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it, so definitely gonna play that soon.
But yeah,
this album has a lot of hard body shit on that. Was one track where he starts off by just naming Charlie Parker songs. It's a really, really good album. Really, and another one to put in the bag. This was obviously another similar album that came out with the G.A.T. Very hard price, very hard to get, hard to find. But obviously, eventually, it's surfaced online for people that know. It's a very fire album, very fire.
But then we get to Dump Olympics Wide Berth. Actually, we can skip the Dump Olympics. The Dump Olympics went along for longer than the real Olympics, if I recall.
Mach
had that album was executive produced by Mach, as well as the Wide Berth that was just solely F.Y.I. That was also executive produced by Mach. But the Wide Berth, some songs on that are absolutely incredible. Fromage, Smarten Up. A really good Wingardium Leviosa as well, which obviously is a Harry Potter reference. Really, really good songs on there. I just actually recently got that on vinyl.
Yeah, Duck Season's good. Wide Berth is great. The one between, I would say, Gospel According to G.A.T. and the Muggs collab that I would say I would recommend to anybody is Notorious Dump Legends, which is something I'd kind of forgotten about until you reminded me of it in the homework for this show. And goddamn, is this album good. This is basically like you get mostly the best F.Y.I. productions, the best F.Y.I. loops you've ever heard. 1 or 2 Earl productions, I believe. Sadu Gold comes in with something that I know you weren't super fond of on Forward. That's kind of out of his usual. But I still liked it. Nicholas Craven destroys it on Black Dollar. It's basically the most motivated F.Y.I. performance you've ever heard. It's honestly the one project I would say where F.Y.I. competes with Mach. It's not as good as Dollar Menu 3 overall because I think the beats aren't quite as compelling and Mach isn't quite as compelling, but in terms of an even performance, F.Y.I. matches Mach here, which is something to see. And Food has a ridiculous F.Y.I. beat. So
that's not F.Y.I. That's the Architect.
I'm sorry, that was it was Food?
The Architect. He also did the Dollars and Cents album by F.Y.I., which was very fire. 2 very beautiful Matt songs on that album as well. Very good, very good.
So yeah, this kind
obviously F.Y.I. discography is very deep. So
so this kind of flew under the radar. You can get it for $111 on Mach-Hommy's website.
Worth every penny.
By the way, Mach-Hommy's website also emphasizes no refunds.
So, you better invest wisely.
Yeah, it's not great.
So yeah, no refunds for the from people.
The investors are going to, part ways with their money either way. So that's on them and their pockets. So.
Moving on to now, I'm going to butcher the fuck out of this. Sorry. Tuez-les Tous. Is that okay?
I don't even know how to pronounce it myself, mate. I've just been calling it Tuez-les Tous. So
I'm not gonna try pronouncing that. So
I think it's French Creole. That would make sense for it to be French Creole.
Let's just say the first Muggs album.
It's Muggs and F.Y.I. It's Muggs in the midst of a career renaissance. He started about 1.5 years prior. He did the second best Cypress Hill album out of nowhere when no one was checking for Cypress Hill album. He did a really good Rolodex album, and then he does this. This is fucking remarkable. This is the best songwriting of any Mach album, I would say.
Yeah, it's really great. It actually grew on with recent listens, just for this podcast. The beats are really great, and like we always talk about like Mach and just his way of words, like how he kind of uses like different cadences and syllables and diction. It's just
he definitely goes all over the place on this album.
Yeah.
Like we were saying before about how he approaches the different projects with producers. It's like Muggs was already in his lane, like you were saying, Pat. He was already in his lane doing his own thing, and along comes Mach. They do their own project, and it's like it's a part of his discography, but it's also something new for Mach. Like this, in my opinion, was his first project where he's everything before this, like the G.A.T and Luh Hertz, they seem like kind of a lot of thrown together from other projects, whether it was bars or whole tracks. This one was like the start for him, of him doing his own thing, like the Mugs and then Wap Konn Jòj, and then obviously now Mach's Hard Lemonade. So this one is probably one of the strongest out of that period since 2019. Incredible. The way he changes the flows on almost every track again, using the Haitian Creole, using the English, using the samples. Like there's one track, I'm not sure which one it is. I think the Wet Valley, where they sample in the Kilimanjaro versus David Rodigan clash from the 90s. It's fucking crazy, like mad. But that beat just goes in hardcore, just like all the other Muggs albums from that time. Just fits in perfectly with both the discographies. And then obviously they went on to do the Kill 'Em All album, which again blew out the water. Another one, same kind of similar vibes.
Tuez-les Tous or whatever is French Creole for Kill 'Em All, so they're supposed to be sister albums.
There's all the samples of Louis Farrakhan and Khalid Muhammad talking about killing them all, the different people in the Jewish community, the different other people that they're talking about on the samples. If you can do the knowledge on that, but it's crazy deep. This album goes crazy deep.
Yeah, 900K is one of my favorite songs of his for sure.
I love Peter. I don't know how to properly pronounce that, but Peter, whatever.
Well, he says it on the hook.
That's Peter, my favorite on here. I also love. I got a renewed love listening to it today for the Fowler snare, which starts off with a sitar and then has like these like 8-bit little like distortions in it. Has one of the best Fahim verses, and then the last two tracks, Mami Wata, which is like this hard fucking cipher shit with like just like basic drum break on it. And Droog and Mach just like in classic fucking like those two together never like they really step their games up when they're with each other. So that's another example of that.
100%.
And I feel like Muggs' production on here is both like cinematic and dirty at the same time.
So dirty, so dark.
Right. It feels just very distorted and heavy and dark, for lack of a better word, but also like clearer than something that Earl or Knxwledge would give to Mach.
100%. It's so much more polished. Like they've both obviously got together in the studio and made this music. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I'm saying. It's like the first of them kind of projects. Before then, he was just making projects with producers, beats, whatever. Probably just sending it back and forth. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe meeting up with them once in a while. But this is like the proper one where he's like got in, locked in, made a full project like from scratch. And
right. This feels like he was actually in a studio as opposed to in his apartment.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe not even an apartment, just maybe some random studios, but whatever.
Yeah,
it's
like
definitely the start of that.
I was saying that for a fact. You know what I meant. But
Fahim, definitely, 100%. But the track Peter, I know you mentioned obviously on the previous podcast that you like that one a lot. I've actually got a theory about
the vivid
imagery about that track,
dude. The vivid fucking imagery on that song. There's so much he does with his voice on this album. I don't know if it's both him doing it in his own flow and the way he uses his voice over the course of a verse and the way Muggs produces it. They're doing a lot with his voice on this album. Like it's really remarkable. And
there's one part of it where he actually got a verse from Titanium White on Kill 'Em All, chopped and screwed on the end of one of the songs. And if you didn't realize that.
I think I did actually. I think I heard that, but
definitely fire.
Kill 'Em All. Like we can move on to Kill 'Em All if you want, because Kill 'Em All is like I feel like I like this better as an overall project. Kill 'Em All might have the better songs on it because there are a few on there, like Apollyon's Wheel and fucking the one with the bees came from London, bro. What the fuck is that song?
The Mount Tambora is actually the most beautiful song ever. The beat on that, like with the siren.
It is. You know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, it's one of them songs. I wanted to mention about Peter on the Tuez-les Tous.
Force Majeure.
Yeah, dope track. But yeah, the Peter track I wanted to mention about that. Obviously, the Peter is actually Saint Peter. The verse.
So that's when he's doing "Don't drown like Peter, walk on water." Like
exactly.
It's a reference to Jesus getting off the boat, being a fisher of men. It's like his most deep religious reference yet.
Saying that obviously the story is obviously Jesus walking on water, you know what I mean, and Peter being scared to join him on the waters. So Mac's saying, you know what I mean, you can don't drown like Peter. Don't drown like Peter. He's saying, you come with me. You know what I mean? I'll show you the way. You don't need to. I'm the one walking by the boat, telling the story. You know what I mean? Jesus is the walking by the boat, walking on water. But obviously Mac is the one walking on the water, saying, "Come with me. Don't drown like Peter. You can walk on the water with me. You'll be fine."
Yeah, he's definitely gotten a lot more confidence and gravity in what he's saying over time. Like before, he had references. Now he has
same theories, the same knowledge. He obviously in the with the Notorious Dump Legends on the front cover with the alchemical cover. Obviously, that was the start of that kind of trend. They're using that kind of alchemical cover in. I'm not going to say it's just underground as a whole, but definitely Mark and Fahim's projects. They use it on the Dump Assassins. On the alternative version for this album, the Tuez-les Tous, and also on the Wap Konn Jòj and Max Hard Lemonade, all have got that same kind of style. But if you do the knowledge, that kind of similar knowledge, that occult hidden knowledge, is all intertwined with Max ideas, in my opinion at least, about a lot of what he's saying in his music. So if you can understand, obviously, the literature references, the literary references rather, then you can understand a lot more of what he's saying in his bars, in my honest opinion. So that's what, to me, makes him one of the best writers in the game, period, if not of all time, at least right now, because
right now,
things together like he is.
For sure right now, you've thoroughly convinced me that I was too hard on him in the previous episode, so you can take that trophy.
But I'm a fan for Mike, obviously, as
I will not concede on Germ's behalf. Germ can come on here and say it whether or not he agrees with you. But I think our beef was more with his attitude than with his content. Or
100%. 100%.
But
you guys still respected the music. That's why obviously I've come on here to obviously say.
But again, one thing that I started to approach that I think we got way off base on was that Milo said on the Nostrum album, "It's $1,000 mixtape" because I said it was, and I let Milo get a pass on that and actually admired him for it because I liked Milo's attitude. Mach actually charges $1,000 for it, and I'm pissed at Mach. What's the difference? Like, why do I view these two artists differently? They're both just trying to get value out of their art, right?
Maybe. They're both the same. They're both artists. They're both musicians trying to put music out in this climate. So.
Right. So that's what I was kind of trying to approach the discussion about, where it was more just like value on art, which I think is now more relevant than ever in terms of artists have so fewer avenues now because...
True. Obviously, the way Griselda has come along with the merch and their approach to everything is completely, for me, has flipped everything on its tail. Like the dot shit, when them banners used to go for the regular price, they used to be up for weeks before they sold out. Now, the bots take 50 copies straight away, you know what I mean, of everything. So...
Well, they built up their fan base to such... Their fan base is so rabid now.
Very true. Obviously, the eBay resellers will go straight away before it's even shipped, selling it for thousands and thousands before it's even fucking shipped. You know what I mean? So, mad shit. And that's all obviously come from people like Mark and Nipsey and these other people like called AD. I think you said on one of the episodes was doing shit like that, putting out music at a high amount of money. And you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if you're an artist, it's the longevity matters. Your career, that's the trajectory. That's what matters at the end of the day. You know what I mean? People are always going to say whatever they're saying in the moment with a new latest release. But fuck it, you do what you do. That's Mark. He's him, and that's why.
It's also about feeding yourself too, and I feel like
exactly.
But it's also about like Mach is. I think Germ and I kind of touched on this, where it's like is Mach really struggling to feed himself, and he's kind of like
on his farm and that with his cows. I doubt it, mate. I think he's all good.
But yeah, but then you get into this whole fucking semantic rabbit hole where it's like, am I struggling to feed myself and like supporting this and blah blah blah, where it's just like no one's really accomplishing anything by having this argument. So
this is true. There's people out there on Twitter that I've seen that have copped like 4 copies of the wooden Mach-Hommy Lemonade. So I think if they're spending that much money on that, I think they're feeding themselves all right, you know. There's a lot of the fan base is big. But the point I was saying about that was, to bring it up about Griselda, was Mach's influence on that kind of putting a high price on the art. Now it's come to the point where they're selling the prints of the art for high price. You know what I mean? There's not even just the music, they're selling the prints. The artists are coming into the prominence, like Sepp and other people that are out there making that good, dope art. You know what I mean? So.
Well, getting back to Kill 'Em All just real quick, it's like basically if you listen to Tuez-les Tous and you're like, damn, I wish there were more Fahim verses on this. But the
Fahim goes in on these.
The beats on this might even be better than Tuez-les Tous in a lot of cases.
Force the Jaw is like
really
crazy.
left field beats on this. The Omni is super spacious. It's like celestial almost. Apollonian's Wheels. I don't know how you pronounce it. Typical great Droog and Mach collab. Cessna 210, that run from the proper beginning track to the Omni is as good as anything on Tuez-les Tous. Then I would say that it kind of falls off just a little bit from its parent album Until Titanium White, which is as good as anything on either album. So
yeah, the one with Jacken is not one of my favorite songs.
No, Sick Jacket sucks. I do not like his verse.
Wow. I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely my least favorite song on that album.
So yeah, the instrumentals are incredible. It's been a while since I've said this, but where the fuck is the instrumental version of any DJ Muggs album? But
we've actually had an impressive length in the pod where you haven't asked for an instrumental version.
Well, now I want to make up for it because I'm asking for instrumental versions of every DJ Muggs album.
Every DJ Muggs album.
Any. So
just get the old Cypress albums. That's probably all there is, probably.
I mean, Temples of Boom, one of the best albums of all time. I really need that fucking instrumental. Black Sunday. Come on.
Yeah, the track with RZA on that and Gawd on the Killer Hills. Ooh. Fire.
So yeah,
what's after
Kill 'Em All is great. It's not quite as good as their first, but it's still really, really worth hearing. Mach goes just as hard at it. Fahim does really well by Fahim standards. I always had this theory that it would be better for the world if Mach hooked up with Droog before Fahim, but I feel like Droog has made Mach, like Droog and Mach kind of bring out their insufferable tendencies in each other, even though artistically they have great music together.
Well, they definitely got, in my opinion, they definitely both got the similar kind of references. Not similar references, but similar way that they flip references in their bars. Like Droog is probably one of the best lyricists in the game as well, even though I don't really like his music that much.
I love his music.
And such a way with the bars.
Can't find, it's weird because I love his music, but I can't find anybody who wants to do a podcast about him.
I mean, I know I'm
out there, but he's probably blocked most of them on Twitter, so they're probably not going to want to.
I think he probably has he had me block. I mean, he liked shit I said on Twitter, then he unliked it, and then he probably blocked me, and then I got off Twitter. So now he's going to see this and probably unlike it. So then we'll have a habitual. I just thought there's probably a joke here in that we have a guy named Street's Disciple who habitually unlikes every episode, and now after we do this segment, now your old Droog is going to be the other guy who habitually unlikes everything.
It's really just it's down the line because Droog was always a Nas clone, right? That was the rub on him.
I mean, why did you spell the fucking joke out, dude? Why did you spell it?
You just got to give me a break every once in a while. Also, I half the time I make jokes on here, you don't laugh or get them. So it's like
no, I have a bee that's fucking around me right now. That's making me really anxious. So
well, Pat, you probably glad then the Droog's now doing projects with Fahim. Obviously, the Yard Fahims or Dump Yard, whichever one they're dropping first, is supposed to be dropping pretty soon. So
no, I've liked all the Droog Fahim stuff I've heard for sure.
Definitely a chemistry.
I was not lying about there being a bee around me, making me really anxious, and that's why I wasn't. I actually thought his response was really funny.
But anyway,
this is great radio, by the way, that I stopped the podcast cold to let everybody know that I was threatened by a beat.
Threatened by a beat. Well, I mean, I guess we could do Mach's Hard Lemonade. That seems to be the.
Well, I think there's still we've still got Wap Konn Jòj.
Wap Konn Jòj, dude.
Oh, should we? Hadn't talked about that. See,
Keep calling it Joji, man. I'm gonna punch you in the face.
That seems like a really unnecessary escalation.
Let's say you mispronounced the name of this album one more time. I swear to God.
I would say that this album that I'm not going to name has a lot of similarities to Earl is on this album. I would say that this EP feels a lot like another EP, Feet of Clay. It feels like an encapsulation of the artist's career in miniature.
Yeah, including, but it doesn't have the accordion beat. You know, the circus type.
Right, it doesn't have the nautical jaunty bullshit that pissed everybody off. Even though I saw nothing wrong with it, but yeah, people got mad that Earl was like in and out with his verse. I thought Earl's verse was great on this. The Fahim and Droog song is again fantastic, as every Mach Droog song is. Everything on this is cool. There are some parts weirder than others. For under 20 minutes, it has incredible variety and consistency.
Definitely. Again, the way they flip the samples, again, like the sample on Basquiat on the last track, Simbi, just plays out for like the first minute, I think, and then the beat comes in, and it's like, wow, that track, that's one of my favorites of all time, that track, Simbi. Beautiful track. Again, the beat, just heavenly. Similar to Ron Van Cleef, like, just heavenly beat. The beat drop on Idiot Boy, though, oh, Lord. I wish it would have dropped a bit sooner before that, because it would have been probably one of the best songs that they've ever done. But when it comes in, Mac just absolutely kills it.
Honestly, I think that I love the Idiot Boy Mitram Simbi, like the final run of them taking EP better than anything. Like, it's another one that starts off pretty good and then finishes stronger than it starts.
100% agree. The Mitram track is probably one of my least favorite songs that I've ever heard out of the whole discography. I'll skip it.
I disagree. I mean, I think that I like that song. It's not the best on here by any means, but it's a good song.
But I think it's just the Elvis bit at the start that puts me off every time. Just not one of my favorites. But the rest of it is absolute fire to me. Absolute. Again, even the interlude again is just like crazy sample. El flipped on that one.
Mozambique Drill has one of those great Mach mantras: "The play stupid games, win stupid prizes."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sets a perfect precedent for Mach's Hard Lemonade with the prizes of big massive wooden vinyl. Sets a big precedent.
That's the prize. About that he was foreshadowing.
100%.
Yeah, it's great. Also
want to mention that he's got two beats on there from a UK legend called Trellian, who I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of, but proper sick guy, makes ill beats and spits hard as well. Been going for a long time. But Bulletproof Law actually came out on a label that he's associated with, Bad Taste, who from Sheffield in New England. So that's a dope connection.
Heard of dude, but I will check for him now that you enlightened me on that. So thanks for
dope connection.
All right.
Obviously, again, the production on that is just out of this world. That's the first tape that was mixed and mastered. The same guys that did the Mach's Hard Lemonade tape as well. So the similarities between.
Was Scotty Hart on that one? Because didn't Scotty Hart do Mach's Hard Lemonade?
I think he mixed it, and then that guy Foss Kemper, I think he mastered it.
Scotty Hart worked with Medeski, Martin, and Wood. He's and Wu-Tang, obviously, yeah. He's a really seasoned fucking engineer. He's
exactly Wu-Tang Forever, and then Foss Kemper is a Grammy Award-winning masterer, obviously. So that's who Matt's got to produce his records, and this is even before any connection with Jay-Z. So he's definitely got his own.
But yeah, somewhere between Tuez-les Tous and Wap. I'm not going to try and pronounce it so I don't get punched.
Somewhere between that album and Wap.
And Wap now. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. All right. No.
Somewhere between them two albums. What you're saying happened?
Yeah.
What's going on?
We're going to. We end up with Mach falls in with Jay-Z. and they have a picture together which says "The Internet on Fire," which is weird because Mach has no internet presence. And his album "Mach's Hard Lemonade," a pun that took me way too long to get, is going to be a Tidal exclusive, apparently.
And that album was finished by the late 2019, so that was already in the bag. You know?
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, it was apparently finished in late 2019. And we did not get the album until about a month ago. I would say, however,
first announced in March, and then it was the pre-order came out in about July, and then the album didn't come until like August, so it was a long wait.
Didn't get Trunsuka Chris did not get his vinyl until about 2 weeks ago. Said it was worth it though.
Oh, 100%. I actually copped a CD and a slip mat. Came with a nice air freshener, lemons.
Oh yeah, you got the lemon scented one. Was it yellow CD? The vinyl was yellow.
The CD wasn't yellow, but it's got beautiful alchemical art again all over it. So beautiful, great to my collection.
So Mach's Hard Lemonade, and I would say that this is the most potent distillation of Mach to this point.
Yeah, a lot of people I know have already said that it's one of his best projects. I can't really rank it up with anywhere at the moment because it's still pretty fresh, but definitely one of his strongest, 100%. Like Soon Ja Do, Smoke Maldon, Poorhouse, Squeaky Hinge, just incredible.
It's what I think was most impressive about it is that it takes from a bunch of different producers, but it feels like one of his single producer projects, not one of his early multi-producer projects. He feels fully assured in what he's doing, and it feels completely of one vision, even though he's taking from multiple producers. There are so many other voices on this, yet it feels completely cohesive.
Definitely.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Wap Konn Jòj as well. Both similar in that vein.
And it goes clear vision. It also goes back to what you said, Patrick, about him like refining his approach. If this is the most like potent, like you said, potent distillation, I mean, 22 minutes, 9 songs, like that's pretty. And there's not room to miss when you limit yourself, but when you like hone down your album like that. And he didn't miss, You're
really editing yourself to the bare essentials. Right.
Whereas like if there is a miss on a 22-minute album, it's the same way we always bring up Kanye, but it's the same thing with the 7-song Wyoming stuff. You can't miss on those. And Mach did not miss on this one. So
and this isn't 7 songs, but it's essentially as long as
it's the same. Yeah, it's like the same length. Yeah.
Wap Konn Jòj was 7 songs. This one's 9, So
yeah. But 22 minutes, like roughly the same length, very very short. And one, I think it's one of his better. One of his better projects. Most of his projects are really good. So
I love the Field of Dreams reference he gets into early on, where he talks about being on the diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I built a baseball diamond on the sticks.
On the stick, yeah.
Right in the middle of a cornfield.
I love the kitchen slave imagery that Earl comes up with on Soon Ja Do. That's very vivid and potent.
There's another, on Poorhouse, there's another reference to Mobb Deep on there.
Oh, Poorhouse is amazing. I love the back and forth between the two, and then Droog is like, one side's pure evil, like Republicans, and then Mach's like a bleeding heart liberal, pander to the blacks or something.
Hard body. But you were talking about on the last podcast about the Mach-Phonics bar. That's actually a reference
you hooked on Mach-Phonics, yeah.
It's actually a reference to Quiet Storm from Mobb Deep.
Of course. So you just came on this podcast to just make me look bad over and over. I mean, that's
that was the point, yeah. So Mach's bar was, you're a dick blower trying to speak the dump language. What's the drilly with that, though? Ain't banging. You hooked on Mach-Phonics, you ignorant garbage. You lying to the pop dog like you got it. And Prodigy's was, you're a dick blower trying to speak the dumb
language, yeah.
What's the drilly with that, though? It ain't banging. You hooked on Mob-Phonics, infamous Bonics, lying to the pop dog like you got it. So...
Well, first of all, it was Germ that was really on the Mach-Phonics thing, and second, you just called me ignorant garbage.
Well, we're all ignorant garbage out here, man, trying to understand what the fuck this guy's saying. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But the more you understand, the more you respect, and at the end of the day, this fucking shit is banging.
Oh no, this shit is so banging. The fact that it's in and out in 22 minutes, that's what's most respectable about it to me. It's like some rap songs in that way. It doesn't have the emotional kick that some rap songs does, but I feel like he's saying personal things in the same way, where it's like he's speaking back at the industry. Like when he talks about like, oh, he's going to go digital with the Spook, he ain't going to make it. If you recall that
a lot
part.
of this album, it's got little tab bits like that where he's clearly referencing the whole game and his place in it, but he's not saying it directly. You just got to interpret it that way.
No, again, that's the thing about Mach is that he always is saying things, but he's saying them in decipherable codes. Exactly. And it's not a sort of front like Jay. And now I guess we have to come to the question. Because I listened to fucking a little bit of the J and J album again, and I don't hear it, but everybody else says that Jay-Z is rapping like Mach-Hommy. And maybe it's because it was Jay's. I thought Jay was rapping great on that album, and I don't think he's rapping like Mach. So I don't hear it. But do you guys hear it?
I don't.
There's definitely a lot of. Oh, sorry, go on.
I don't really hear it in the sense that it's hard to rap like Mach-Hommy. Just like what we've talked about, just with the idiosyncrasies that goes into Mach-Hommy being Mach-Hommy. Like, I think it's tough. I think, honestly, the album, though, that J-Elec and Jay-Z collab album does kind of have a feel of like a Mach-Hommy and like F.Y.I album, just a little bit. In the sense that also Jay-Z is carrying Jay Electronica through that album.
Okay, that's actually a good point. Jay Electronica's sub the God F.Y.I.
I mean, honestly, in 2020, they basically make the same like level of music, and people just thought,
F.Y.I.'s way better than Jay Electronica.
Yeah, people thought Jay Elec was going to be like an all-time great rapper.
I mean, Killah Priest made a way better album.
Killah Priest made a lyrical miracle cloud rap album. It was great. It was
that album's crazy, man.
It's like these weird,
it's like nothing he's ever done before.
Way different.
Crazy.
Killah Priest listened to.
His last few albums,
the
Planet of the Gods.
Styler album, dude.
His last three albums, the Planet of the Gods and the what was the other one before that? The Psychic World of Walter Reed. It's like a similar kind of.
That was a triple album. The only other rapper I can remember doing a triple like that was MF Grimm.
Well, K Reno has put out like 5 albums in a day sometimes, so.
I'm sure Charles Hamilton put out like box sets that I don't even remember.
Or Lil B, like, you know, so.
Oh, Lil B is definitely.
Or even F.Y.I.
Lil B, yeah.
Well, what do we count? Well, Lil B puts out like 1,000-track mixtapes, and they're just mixtapes. They're just little.
MySpace collection, like, for fucking hell, mate.
Yeah, the huge 200 like song Lil B mixtape or whatever that.
Like 8 gigabytes or some shit like that, man.
From this year.
Going back to that 2012 era where people were
listened to like 3 tracks.
The recent one, Patrick, not the one earlier with the chopped and screwed. Because he has a recent.
No, I mean I mean the MySpace one, like the MySpace.
The MySpace. Oh yeah. Oh, because Lil B has multiple mixtapes this year that are 100 tracks.
Wow. Okay.
He has.
Wait.
Not stopping. Yeah, let's get back onto the topic.
Yeah.
We were still on Mach's Hard Lemonade, weren't we? Rounding it out. Well, you're talking about J-Elec.
Well, anyway, yeah, Mach's Hard Lemonade, I would say. So where do we think it falls? Like, you said you don't think it's top 5, Mach? You really don't? Top 5?
I don't want to really put it in. I don't want to put it in there yet to mix up with any of the others because it's so new and fresh.
I guess you're right. It's only been 2 months. It's only been 2 months.
It's because I want to see I want to see what is coming with next because he dropped a single after that called Really Weak, and that was really. I don't know if you heard that, but the beat on that is like
we talked about it.
Something that he's probably never done before. That beat is like kind of like a double time beat, but it's like Preservation again. It's hard to describe, but it's so unorthodox for Mach, but he fucking rides it like a beast again, as he always does. So it's like, where is he going to go next with this? He's dropped another single. I don't know if you guys seen this the other day. No Chill, No Frills. 7-inch single. That's on 2 sides. $187 for a 2-sided single. It's part of a series. So a lot of people I've been speaking to probably think it's going to be like a series where he just drops like a whole series of singles for 187, and then that'll be like an album or something. So we'll see what happens. But you know.
It's like the Gorilla Song Machine, but way, way, way more expensive. So
I just want to wait to see what he's coming with next to actually put it in there with all of his other projects. But it's definitely a strong project. It's hard body bars and beats, as always, you can expect with Mach-Hommy. Just nothing really bad to say about it except Clout Dracula. But moving on.
So I would say, I guess my last question would be a 3-part question. Best project, best entry point, and where do we think Mach stands all time?
Well, all time, I don't really. I mean, this is inherently pretentious. I don't really give a shit about making like all time like projections.
Fine.
Yeah.
Check my fucking question. Okay.
No. But I mean,
check my fucking question. Okay.
He's never gonna be never gonna be a favorite because I like so much of his music. But I don't know. I don't think he's like one of my favorites ever. But he's got a bunch of great albums that some of which I listen to semi-consistently. Really like the G.A.T, the Mox Hard Lemonade of late. I even got the free title subscription for it, so you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of like all time, I can't. I don't know where he'll be because he's not. How many people outside of us on weird corners of the internet are going to really, you know, analyze Mach-Hommy's whole career unless Jay-Z gives him a huge boost?
I don't know.
There's definitely a big fan base.
It's not Griselda level fan base though. It's just not, and that's not a bad thing. But like,
I agree with that at the same time. But obviously, a lot of fans of Mach-Hommy has come from Griselda anyway, including myself. So it's definitely.
True,
I see what you're saying, 100%. Yeah. But to me,
I just mean Griselda,
especially online on social media, there seems to me a big presence of people that, you know, fuck with dude's music and respect dude and do analyze it, but maybe just don't, you know, really want to put that out there maybe. But definitely a lot of love out there in the game. I mean, even Muggs called him one of the greatest artists to ever walk the earth, like no joke. So
I would say the fact that Jay went out of his way to, you know, get such a deal for him for one album, to reach out to him, to make that presence known, probably still to the fact that there is a fan base that isn't just internet nerd. The internet nerd fan base is a big part of it, but that, you know, artists, and that's the sort of fan base that survives over time, and that maybe 10, 20, 30 years from now, there's going to be a lot more. But I would say favorite album is probably the discussion I'm more interested in having. I just threw that at the end, and I just have 3 questions. I said I had to have 3 questions, so I apologize for that because I set you guys off.
No worries.
But favorite fucking Mach album, I would say, is probably, I don't know. I listen to so much for this, and I like so many of them, but Tuez-les Tous or Tuez-les Tous or the G.A.T. I think they explore different sides of his personality as an artist. But he has so many that I wouldn't be mad at pretty much any answer.
Yeah, there's definitely a deep discography for Mach and both Fahim especially. But as we're talking about Mach, the G.A.T, HBO, probably my 2 favorite projects. But ones to entry point, I was saying to you earlier, Pat, like I always like to go chronologically with an artist. But with Mach, it seems like that's integral and important because you have to understand where he's coming from as an artist. And like I was saying earlier about the references, if you don't understand what he's saying, you might not fuck with it. But 3 listens later, you are going to hear something that you're thinking, oh, what the fuck was that? There's a Droog bar where he says, you never hear nobody say run some shit back. With Mach, you do that on every track. And there's, like I always keep saying, there's not many in the game that will be doing it like that. There really ain't. Mm-hmm. And Mach-Hommy is the one that is doing it. So whether you want to dislike him because of his marketing ploys, whether you want to dislike him because you don't like his music, you can't respect the hustle. You can't disrespect the hustle, man.
Yeah, and I think, I think with Mach, like my closing thought is that he's such like a brilliant, like eccentric, you know, artist, and it's tough for me to find a lot of like words to say about some of his projects, just because, I mean, for one, you guys speak so, eloquently about them, but I think him overall, one of the reasons why I like listening to him is that sometimes, even without like thinking about the music just sounds so great, and he just sounds so comfortable a lot of times. And what he's saying, you pick up little things here and there, but a lot of times I'm not going to sit here and act like I've really analyzed a lot of his bars, because I just enjoy hearing him rap. And that's like the biggest thing for me with like any rapper is like, do I just really enjoy listening to them? And Mach, fits that description, whether I'm focused on what he's saying or not.
And we hope you enjoyed listening to this. Aaron, thank you for joining us. We know you produce some rap music of your own, and Wale Be Kind, super producer Kittenpuke, will be kind enough to put a link to that in the description. And we are living.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And we are living off borrowed time. Our outro music is Stagnated Pace by Can Kick, as always.
Peace.
It ain't gonna never stop. 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 It ain't gonna never stop.
Time is yet to be conquered by man. But when the time is right, perhaps the greatest revelation of all time will dawn upon us.